Welcome, everyone, to a pseudo-squirm roundtable discussion. It's been a while since we've had a roundtable discussion because
All
we're
five
here
of
to
us.
discuss the Legend of Korra series as a whole with our final thoughts of the series to boot.
Yeah.
So, who wants to start?
Can I go first?
Go
Sure.
ahead.
Yeah. Alright, basically, in my opinion, this series is like a tale of two halves. One half is really, really messed up. The other half is a lot more cleaner with a few bits of dirt here and there. Um, okay, I'll go through my thoughts on each season briefly. Series 1, the main problem with Series 1 is that it spent way too much time on the pro bending stuff. It's like the actual main plot they came up with. They felt that, oh crap, we can't fill this up for 12 episodes, so we're just going to replace it with a Quidditch knockoff.
I
Yeah,
still remember
it's
Tio
not like
trying futilely to figure out how the
Korra is
rules
gonna
worked
become
for
the
the sake of the
water
lore.
it's not like we could have spent that time fleshing out the characters, but hey, what do I know?
Hey, what wasn't spent on pro bending was spent on that stupid love triangle or love rectangle or love
Yeah,
decagon.
Continue, Dweebs.
yeah, that's another problem with the
The
show.
love
It's
hydrodecahedron, whatever the fuck how you say it.
yeah, yeah, that brings another problem. The love triangle. I swear to you, I have not seen a love triangle in any show or film that wasn't toxic to the product, and this
Just to
is no
see.
exception. It's just, I mean, why? I don't think romance was ever really this franchise's strong point, but it just it just goes completely off the rails here, and even more so in series 2.
The original
It's
Avatar
just
did romance fine enough. Here's the trick. They made sure to not have it be like the main forefront center and focus. Like, sure, we ever got the hint that Toph had feelings for Sokka. Sokka fell in love with Yue, who then died and became the moon. Aang always had the hots for Katara and so on and so forth.
anyway. And the thing of this love triangle is that whenever it pops up, it turns the characters involved in it into unbearable douchebags.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I'll get more into that when I talk about series 2. There were a few good individual moments. My favourite one being the one where, to outsmart the Mooks electrocuting her little metal prison, Korra used a little tiny bit of cloth to hang on the top of it so that it wouldn't electrocute her, and she pretended to be electrocuted
Mm-hmm.
and took the Mooks out when they were least expecting it. That if they had more moments like that, and less either pro bending meandering or the love triangle shit, I would have liked season 1 more. Season 1 was just mediocre. Yeah, and then that was disappointing enough, considering that, I mean, it was 4 years since the end of the original show, and 2 years after the god awful movie. Season 2. I swear to God, it's like Stephen Moffat wrote that series.
It really is, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just complete shit. Okay, okay. Outside of maybe bits of some episodes here and there, the love triangle is just freaking intolerable in this one. When I said it took some bits of season 1. It turned some of the characters there into really unbearable people. It's at its worst here with aggravating argument scenes and that table flip.
Oh, God.
It got and you fucked the character up when you have to basically reboot her in the very same episode. It's just and if that were bad enough, the story itself was just totally uninteresting whenever it showed up. Like, I mean, I can't even tell you I can't even tell you if there was a winner of that friggin' Civil War, and I don't even care.
All right, yeah, there was a civil war, which was actually the better plot.
It was.
Compared to the Spirits plot, oh, God.
I well, I couldn't even tell you who won that one because I forgot. And yes, and some of the moments where, I mean, there was a lot of rather convenient moments. I mean, I know films and writing as a whole is one massive ball of convenience. But you can ignore that because what you're watching is fun to watch.
You have to suspend your disbelief to some extent. It's just going
Yeah.
to be a necessity.
Yeah, I mean this is a franchise about someone who could shoot fire and lightning out of their hands.
Not even just that, Dwebs. Like, suspension of disbelief needs to kick in every movie, even the most realistic movies, because if there was a movie that was 100% realistic in every single aspect about how events run,
5 minutes.
it would end in 5 minutes. So it just doesn't work.
The problem here is that the biggest problem was Janora.
Oh
And,
yeah, Janora.
And that hey,
I
okay.
am Jesus.
Because it kind of gives Tenzin the short end of the stick because he
Thank you.
He didn't really do
Oh.
much. He didn't really do much in the first series, and he was even worse in the second one because he got usurped by his own daughter.
I know, right?
And was it ever established? Okay. To say, I won't go so far as to okay, it's hard to explain, but it does feel a little bit egregious of me that I can believe that Aang is as powerful as he is, but yet just completely throw Janora under the bus because they were the same age at the time. We found that they were very powerful in that.
Here's the difference. With Aang, we saw his journey to how he became that powerful. With Janora, she just is, apparently.
Yes.
But don't you see, Jova? She's incredibly gifted.
It's like Rey in this new Star Wars trilogy we got at the minute. She doesn't have to work for anything. She just gets powers.
I know, right?
And okay, it's not as bad here because I mean, at least character-wise, Janora is fine. I don't hate her.
And thankfully, they improved her in book 3 and 4.
Yeah. Again, I did like that episode where it explains the origins of the Avatar.
Yeah.
But it also causes a really aggravating moment in the finale when by the way, we can't have stuff be too easy for Korra, so Banga, we're going to take away the other avatars with a whip, pretty much.
Yeah. Bye-bye, Aang and company.
Yeah, that's something Stephen Moffat would do. Just I mean, yep. When an episode stinks, it kind of wrecks series lore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Fortunately, series 3 was a lot better because it felt like it was written by an entirely different team, even though I know it wasn't. Korra is actually a lot more tolerable this time because Ace doesn't flip tables over because you don't agree with me, fuck you. This time she actually takes time to think. I mean, there are times where she does get a bit hot-headed, but that's more.
It's more reasonable.
It's more reasonable on that than just I'm angry.
Especially when one of the people she's dealing with is the Earth Queen. Ooh.
Yeah, I didn't miss her. The Earth Queen, I mean.
Dwebs. Bossing say cheered when she was assassinated. I think a lot of people are with you.
Yeah, the Queen is dead, yay! They finally got rid of that bullshit love triangle that basically, every time it showed up, I felt like I was watching a bloody Emmerdale episode.
Let me guess, soap opera.
Yeah.
Just insert any
How
name of a
many
British soap
do you
opera.
have?
At least 3.
Soap operas are insanely lucrative
God.
for some reason.
We got much. The villains in series 3 are the best ones in Korra, in my opinion.
I agree.
They have easy to understand motivations. They pose a huge threat because we see them, dispatching we see them dispatching their victims, and they do it really effectively.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the best kinds of villains. The ones that you can understand their motivations, but they're still evil pieces of shit.
And they can back up their words of a fight.
Yeah, like be they either suffocating the Queen to death, or You have to remind me what else did. And even cripple the Avatar.
That too, yeah.
And before that even, have no qualms whatsoever in doing whatever nefarious means they can think of to accomplish their goal. And they kind of achieved their goal at the end. Granted, some of them died, but they achieved it. They crippled the Avatar to the point where she was unavailable for 3 years.
True that.
And in a way, and it's as much of a shithole as it is, seeing Ba Sing Se again was quite refreshing.
Mm-hmm.
It's like series 3 of Korra to me is like season 8 of House. After the dreck of the previous season, they do some freshing up here and there, and it feels a lot, and it's a lot more better to watch. Series 4, I don't think it's as good as the previous one, but I do enjoy. I still enjoy watching the majority of it. It portrays PTSD, really well. I mean, it's not something you can just get rid of in one episode.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you have to. It requires a lot of deftness to handle in a story, and I think it was done well. Although there were times where I feel they were just starting to turn it into the "we can't have Korra win this early" button.
Yeah.
The villain I thought was a little bit of a step down. I don't think she was a bad villain. I don't think her was a bad villain. She did. She was like the other ones. She achieved her goals. She would do. She wouldn't hesitate to do anything to achieve her mission, no matter how heinous they are.
And she did succeed in her mission of uniting the Earth Kingdom. Just now they'll have to do it themselves.
Yeah. The issue really. The finale was fun to watch. Even if it did feel a lot like watching Power Rangers at times. I was half expecting Korra and her friends to say, "We need Megazord power now."
Go Korra Rangers.
Yeah. Well, I think there'd be a better name for that.
Fighting of it talking.
No.
God.
Anyway. As for the elephant in the room regarding the finale, I can see what they were I can see what they were going for. I understand that they were under some constraints, let's say, from Nickelodeon.
Mm-hmm.
And I did notice some foreshadowing here and there. There were a couple of moments in some of the series here and there. Most of them were in series 4. But I don't think they were quite enough to make it really all that convincing. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it was, gay
or non-gay,
girl, boy, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's not. I think they didn't. They weren't either. They didn't do a good job of making it work, or they weren't able to properly make it work. I don't know if the comics do it better. I haven't read it yet. Mind you, I haven't really finished the first Avatar comic, well, the original series. But so I guess maybe I'll find out at some point in the future. But overall, Korra was a really mixed bag. There were either some really great stuff, some absolute drizzling shit, or some just in the middle of the road stuff. I will say though, there were a couple of times where I felt like, you know what, I'd rather watch the movie. Because at least the movie at least had some bits to mock, and laugh at. Whereas the worst of Korra was really aggravating. I can't believe I said that either, but that's legitimately how I feel. There were times where I was like,
I actually agree.
Give me the give me the 7 dancing rock benders that only cause one piece of that only cause one rock to move.
More I give you the I believe scene.
And the penis hair.
All 80 of them, Jova.
That's that movie. In fact, that's season 2 right there. The penis hair is basically that's what season 2 in the movie are. A big hairy cock in your face.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, one other.
I don't know,
so somebody-
Pedro. The hair actually made people laugh.
Oh, one other thing that I don't think I mentioned. I didn't quite get to mention. Christ, what was her name again? Korra's BFF.
Which one?
As-
Oh, Asami?
Yeah, her.
Oh, yeah, the one who's played by Yue in the live-action movie.
Yeah, I swear, the further the series goes, the more her role diminishes. Like, I think she only really had, other than the finale, she only had like one major scene, and that was her talking with her dad.
Yeah.
That's it. By the time Series 4 came around, every time she popped up, I was like, oh wait, she's still here?
Yeah, like it's about like the writers don't know what to do with her, which begs the question: then what the fuck was that ending about then?
She has a fine enough role in Season 1. Season 2, she's there, but strictly for the sake of, oh, is she going to get back with Mako or not? And, oh, her company's in trouble. Then
She's
she
the
has
taxi driver of the group.
Then she actually gets a better role in Season 3, where she actually gets to use a lot more of her mechanical know-how and whatnot about how to sabotage one of the airships. And
Remember
also
the
in how
airship
she helps.
scene, Libs.
Yeah. Not only
was
that...
like one
She
scene.
does, but a lot of it is off screen. Your favorite.
Actually, no, it's not even off
I love-
screen. Wait.
I just love those.
Hold on, Andre. It's not off screen. Also, there's also the point where she actually does use her self-defense know-how and whatnot, and also helps rescue Korra off of an airship as well in here. And they're like, honestly, Season 3 is where I'd actually say Season 3 is quite possibly her... Okay, maybe not her best, that's still Season 4, but it's definitely where she stopped being just there.
Well, that's
Or
the thing,
you-
Jeff. I can't say Series 4 was the best because she was barely in it.
Huh.
Yeah, you can't be a bad character if you're not there half the time.
Okay.
Points finger at head.
Okay. In that case, yeah, Season 3 was her best then, I guess.
Yeah, because one thing she did compared to Bob.
No.
0.5 in
Oh, she did
Series
more than just one thing in Season 3, but whatevs. Anyway, you were saying?
Before you're done, Libs, a question that I'm actually more interested in, and I'm going to ask also to each one of you. What do you think of the character of Korra as herself? From all the series.
All right. Series 1, she was just extremely hot-headed and just like spamming fire at everybody. And again, the best moments were when she actually used her brains, like the whole hanging from the top of the metal prison with a cloth, while being electrocuted, pretending to be electrocuted. Other than that, there she was just really hot-headed, and it wasn't really that fun to watch. It got worse in Series 2, where she was like, I swear to you, I could only recall the scenes, other than before she got eaten by a spirit octopus. I swear I could only recall her yelling at Marco.
Was that an octopus?
Most of the time for no reason.
Spirit aquatic animal.
I swear, the only bits I remember from before that happened were her yelling at Marco most of the time, even though Marco was actually providing good, legitimate points, which makes Korra come off as an absolute tart.
All protagonists
Again.
can't be in the wrong. Come on.
Totally.
Coronation Street. whenever a character whenever we have to try and make a character feel like they're in the right, even though they're wrong, they just yell at them. Yeah, I didn't enjoy that. I'll put it that way. Series 3 and 4, because I think they're both kind of similar in Series 3 and 4, aside from PTSD stuff. She's a lot better. She actually thinks about stuff. She actually plans stuff out. She's not just spamming fire at everything. She uses the other elements when they're appropriate. I gotta say, it actually did a pretty good job turning me around on Korra's character. It's like with Ahsoka in the Clone Wars show. When she started there, no one liked her at all. And yet opinions of her changed the further the series went along.
Mm-hmm.
Here, well, it was important they had to do it, like, because Korra's the main character she's the title character of the show, and I think I think they did a very good job turning my opinion on the character around, especially the that episode in series 4. Was it Korra alone?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the best. That was the best Korra centric episode in my opinion. Yeah, that about covers it, I think. If I need to say something else, one of you guys' final thoughts might trigger that in my mind.
Sure.
Okay.
Who wants to be next? Pedro?
Right. Okay.
This'll
Well,
be good.
let me start. Let me start. Let me start with season 4, since I didn't properly even give any kind of final thoughts on. I already gave my final thoughts on the previous seasons over the course of the commentary. So let me get started with season 4. Season 4 is worse than season 3. It's still fine, but it misses a lot of its potential. You know, the villain starts out promising, but she ends up being nothing but a power-hungry dictator that's incredibly generic. Like, even the opportunities that they do have in fleshing out her character, they don't take those chances. They just make her a generic evil dictator because she's evil, I guess. Aside from that, Korra's arc in this one, it's, I guess, fine, but I don't know. Like, it doesn't quite resonate with me. Jinora is just there being the head of the Airbenders. Tenzin basically does nothing in this season. He has his occasional moment where he is forced to take up arms, but like, again, it's like this put it out earlier. I really hate how Jinora made Tenzin so useless in this show, because Tenzin is a far more interesting and likable character, and I wanted him to actually have a more prominent main role. God damn it! Like, and instead he gets put on the sidelines, and even when the show does decide to focus on him, it's for a stupid diatribe argument with his siblings about Aang not being a good daddy. Ugh.
A lot
Whatever.
of the characters in this series seem to have parental issues.
Yeah, parental issues, which would be
It's
fine.
like a big thing with this series.
Which would be fine if the show actually explored said themes, but it doesn't. It just uses it as a crutch for artificial conflict.
Except for when it comes to the Beifongs.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that was
Okay.
some of the better instances of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't perfect.
Yeah, and guess who wrote
However, they
that?
actually did elaborate on some things.
Yeah, and guess who wrote that? It wasn't neither Mike nor Brian. It was Kay Matilla, one of the current writers of Tangled. You know, someone who actually has demonstrated to be a talented writer.
I mean, Mike and
I
Brian
never
have
saw she
also
was
demonstrated
dragged
it
into this.
too. That's why it's so baffling.
Whatever. But yeah, like,
Well, yeah, I
that's the
mean,
thing,
we've
Joe,
already
that-
seen that they've been good writers page, and we have the original show for that.
No, I know. Katie Matilla was also a writer for the original Avatar. No, that's the thing, Jova. Like, it's sad that she had to be dragged back into this.
Wait,
because of the
wait. She didn't have to be dragged back into this.
Well, remember, Jova, wasn't the whole reason why we brought back the original series writers back in season 2 because of how Brian and Mike completely screwed up season 1?
No, that was just bringing back in the team overall.
No. Well, in that case, why didn't they just do that for the series from the beginning? But
Maybe
whatever.
she was busy with something else at the time.
Well, I don't know. The basic point is season 4 was... it was fine, I guess. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't all that good either. It was just kind of a season that kind of has its... Varric is great, as always. And I really liked how Julie was rewarded for her patience in the end. So that was nice. Like, again, like I said, everything about Varric is pretty much the only thing that was handled pretty much all around exceptionally. Because he's funny. He even has his own personal little mini arcs here and there. And he's just a really awesome character. Like, he brightens up the room every time he shows up.
That was the one relationship I was so happy to see happen. Like, compared to the rest of this.
Then even just that, Shiro, even if you didn't care for them getting together, it's not like the show asks you to care. It plays it out mostly for laughs anyway. So it's not like you're supposed. So it's not like you're supposed to be invested if you don't want to.
Well, I ended up caring.
It's a
by the end of
relationship
it.
that works anyway. I mean, laughs or not, because, you know, it's a relationship where they actually earned it.
True, Joe, but at the same time, the show doesn't force that relationship on you. Like,
Oh,
it doesn't
yeah.
shove it down your throat.
Yeah.
You know, unlike a certain season 1 relationship that I could mention.
Unfortunately, this is a problem with TV shows in general, but I'll get to that when it's my turn too.
And of course, okay, aside from that stupid ending. Okay, how about this? I'm going to cover that ending in 2 ways. One, the original reaction before the comics confirmed that these two are an item. Okay.
I mean, yeah.
Hold on. Let me get
Go on.
into this. So
Go on.
the basic point is okay. Oh, okay. So I guess they're going together to the spirit world on a spiritual road trip or some shit. Okay. It's weird. I mean, they've barely interacted over the course of this thing, but I get.
They're
But
just
I
going
guess
on a girls' trip.
They just want a holiday, you know?
I get it. That's the thing, Shiroi. If they were friends, it would be easier to just get around that. But I still don't buy even as in a friendly relationship because
Really? Okay.
no,
I mean,
because they don't do that much together. They had that one time. I thought it was in season.
actually, there were
3,
several
was it?
times. There was just there were the few times in season 1. Then there was season 2, and they regarded each other. Then they had actually quite a few multiple times in season 3. So, okay.
problem-
I
It was
mean,
mostly it was just mostly awkward giggling. That's nothing.
yeah,
pro-
honestly, they
I
did
would
more
say-
than that.
Go on, Fader, in the meantime.
Yeah.
It was mostly okay. Maybe there were moments. Here's the thing, Jova. The fact that I don't remember them.
Maybe you forgot.
It's a pacing problem, I think.
Jova, maybe if they were memorable and resonated, maybe I would remember better.
fair
the
point.
the fact that there's so few, they're far in between, and
Stuff
even,
happens in between them. That's the other problem.
Yeah.
Plus,
yeah.
remember, there was a 3-year gap between series 3 and 4 timeline-wise.
I know,
In
but
universe.
I know.
Oh yeah,
but
that's pretty
that's
good.
not-
But yeah,
that's not my
Pedro
point,
does
though.
have a point there, though, and
My-
even though there are multiple points, they are a bit spread out, far and few between. So I can't entirely blame
I
someone if they
think,
forgot
sorry
about
for the
them.
food analogy, but it honestly feels
Food
like
analogy?
Hold on. It's like butter, tossed on too much bread. Too thin butter tossed on too much bread.
spread
Yes,
too thin,
Yeah.
there is the taste, but you need to search for it.
I agree.
My problem is that this quote-unquote friendly relationship doesn't feel believable because they don't actually have all that many moments where they genuinely interact for a long period of time. And even when they do have a moment, like they had that one car trip where Kazami was driving her around or some shit. That was like what? It took the 20 seconds of episode runtime. And then we just cut to something else, and then next time we see Korra, she's in a completely different place with somebody else. Again, even when they do share a moment, it's brief, not at all lasting or memorable. So it just kind of disappears and among the mangled of other plot points. It doesn't feel like it's a focus at all. It's just kind of brief little moments. Okay, maybe they kind of enjoy each other's company, I guess, but at the same time, it's just kind of like, okay, so they go with each other, and so okay, can't they at the very least tell the others where they're going?
Wait, she does tell her in season 3.
No, I mean at the end.
In season 4, they just kind of
They just walk through, like they don't tell anyone.
Oh,
where they're going.
that.
They just decide on their own to go to the spirit world. They don't tell anybody, and
That
it's
was
just.
weird.
And it's just what? Like, I mean, if the relationship was more believable, I could let that slip, but it's not. Okay, so that's basically it. So, taking account into everything within the context of the show itself, it's iffy, but it's not exactly offensive. It's just a really confusing way to end the show. I mean,
Yeah, I agree.
Now, with the full context of the following comics that I haven't read, but Jova told me everything that I need to know. that well, didn't you tell me that it's confirmed in the comics that they're an item?
Pedro, it wasn't confirmed in the comics
Oh,
first, though. It was
okay.
confirmed first.
Sorry.
It was confirmed
The
via
interview.
online in an interview.
Okay,
Your
fine.
favorite.
Okay, yeah, okay, fine, whatever. The point is, it's officially confirmed that they're an item. That's the basic point that I'm trying to get at.
Yep, just like the protagonists of Lost Legacy are.
What happened in the comics was that they apparently elaborated on some things a bit more.
And sure. Again, sure, it was completely confirmed in an interview or on Twitter or something.
By the creators, Shiroi.
Let me put it this way: by the time that the comic came, we already fully well knew that they were an item.
Whatever. The basic point is okay. Fine.
With this knowledge, what was your reaction?
Let me base. I'm trying to get to it. Well, here's the thing, Jova. Since Joe brought it up, I'd like to mention this. Okay, you know what? What's the big difference between this and Lost Legacy? Lost Legacy had
did it well.
Not just that. Lost Legacy had a perfectly fine ending that feels very conclusive and satisfying. And even if you don't go out of your way to watch that interview and don't learn about them being an item, it doesn't matter because the story still works just as well without that piece of information anyway. So whatever, right? And that particular confirmation that they're an item, okay, fine, I can buy that. They have a great chemistry, and after everything they've gone through, I can believe that. Same thing with Last of Us Behind the DLC, where we got actual in-game confirmation that of what's going on. However, and by the way, that only took that's a 2-hour piece of DLC. By the way, Korra creators, you know. So when a 2-hour piece of video game is doing this better than you, which had 4 seasons to build this, here's an idea: all that pro betting shit. Well, you could have spent it having these two interact with each other, getting to know each other. That's right. You didn't plan for them to end up together from the beginning, did you? You fucking hacks.
Look, they didn't plan past season 1. Remember?
Exactly.
Yeah, because as far as they knew, and according to Nickelodeon, season 1 was all they were gonna get.
It's like this entire show was made. It was made up as it went along.
Kinda, but that's more to blame on Nickelodeon.
But someone with enough, how not necessarily good writing skills, but more like focus, would manage to make things work. And even if we really wanted to make those two an item. In one building from just last season, managed to do it, find some kind of way. It's just a thing that didn't happen. But I'll mention more when it comes to me.
The basic gist is this: I don't give a shit if it's a gay character, an heterosexual character. They can both be hermaphrodites for all I care. I don't give a shit. Oh my,
that sounds kinky.
All I care about is if the relationship is believable and if there's chemistry between the two characters, and that's done with, story, character, writing, those little things that these writers occasionally forget a lot during this show.
It's like going back to Lost Legacy, even if the characters weren't confirmed to be an item at any point, they still have great chemistry.
I just wish it was in the show, though, not interviews.
True.
Oh, don't worry, I'll get to that when it's my turn.
Well,
yeah.
Like I said, Dwebs. Even if you'd like the creators to have put something like that in the game itself, the story as it's on its own is perfectly self-contained and works just fine. But seriously, even without that piece of information, the story works just fine. It's not like there's any moments. Here's the thing: the reason that particular confirmation from Brian and Mike that these two are an item is kind of troubling to debate is because that ending just feels so weird and just begs for answers.
The sad thing. The sad thing is, as Pedro mentioned, I mentioned the comics. When I was mentioning the comics, what I had actually seen and heard was that the comics do a better job building up the relationship. Which, yeah, that's nice, but why couldn't they have done it that well in the show?
That's the way this. That's the thing too. That comic was written by either one of the two creators, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Again,
I wonder if it's a sign that maybe when they aren't under the stupid
Here's my theory, Jova.
stipulations-
Here's my theory, Jova. They realized that people didn't like it how they didn't properly build up this relationship in the show, so he has to fix it in a comic.
I mean,
the basic gist of
granted, it was nice to see what they're like when not being under Nickelodeon stupid compilations and whatnot, but yeah, all the same, it is a shame.
Like I've mentioned throughout these commentaries, while it is true that Nickelodeon does carry quite a bit of blame, they're not the only culprit here.
Oh, no,
because
absolutely not. I mean, again,
was
even
not-
with that...
I seriously doubt it was Nickelodeon who executively mandated, okay, you need to have half of the first season be nothing but sports.
We do know that...
I seriously thought that was an executive mandate.
I don't know. Like I said, even if you told me later, I still think that Nickelodeon is heavily prevalent in Canadian culture and they love their sports. So,
And we do know for sure that Nickelodeon are the ones responsible for them not being able to confirm that Korra and Asami were actually a couple, and opposed to having to keep it to Twitter at the time.
I don't know,
Some-
but that's the thing, Theo. Pro betting is a fictional sport, though. What would they even gain from forcing this from an executive financial standpoint? Why would they gain from this?
It'd be like if
more
it-
crowd.
sports.
it'd be like
Really?
it'd
It
be
didn't
like
work
if
then.
you,
well,
If it-
yeah.
Wait,
the
wait,
sport
wait,
wasn't
wait.
good.
basically,
Hold on, but didn't
it'd be
season
like
one end up
if
getting like season 2 though? So in theory, wouldn't they say that did work, and the only reason they got rid of it was because a lot of people were calling it out?
it'd be like if in the first Harry Potter film, you know, we don't see Harry piecing together the plot a lot because they have like Quidditch matches against all the other houses.
Yeah, imagine if the Harry Potter series showcased all of the Quidditch matches that are in just the books in the movies.
No matter how unimportant they are to the
Especially when it
plot.
comes to Prisoner of Azkaban. Like, jeez, that one had several.
Yeah. Anyway, okay. Here's the basic shit. Like I said, I don't give a crap. I just see when I see a relationship in a work of fiction, I just see two human beings having a relationship. I don't give a shit about other contexts.
Very
Like
good.
they can be multicolored and full of dicks for all I care.
Okay, thank
Those
you.
analogies are weird.
No, I just don't care. I really don't care. The basic point
No,
is
I understand.
my problem with this is that it devalues character relationships. Okay, it creates one of the things that I don't like. One of the problems I have with bad romance done like this is that it devalues the art of romantic storytelling because you can have romances in stories and they can be done pretty well and be just as sweet as a natural if you know what you're doing. The problem is that so many people screw this up and give romantic storytelling a bad name. Like, let's for example, everybody go back to watch our 5 centimeters per second commentary in how Jova was very apprehensive about watching it because
The main reason is just because I found them boring.
And
Well,
me too.
True,
Yeah.
true.
And not so much
Yeah,
that I
but-
found them bad, just like I found them boring. More so.
The point is, it can be. I hate these kinds of things because it devalues stories like this. The fact that you're doing so haphazardly, you just slap it in here because why not? I guess for the sake of look how progressive we are. I guess that's the only possible reason I can think of why this thing even exists here.
That wouldn't make sense going off of season 1 with the whole progressive thing.
Well, Jova, when has this show made sense between seasons, considering how it changes drastically between seasons?
I do hold
mean-
that maybe if they got into... Actually, I don't know if I should say this for my final thoughts. Maybe if they got to actually show the two in a proper relationship by the end of the series, it would have been nice. But because Nickelodeon
Oh yeah, that's
was
what
all...
I'm asking.
Well, that's the problem. Nickelodeon was all hide your gaze so they could only confirm it in the Twitter
Well-
thing. Granted, that has its own issues here and there. As Rebecca Sugar has shown, you can do that way better. But I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt in that it was 2012, and a lot of studios were kind of stupid that way.
That's very nice, Jova, but I'm judging what it is, not what it could have been.
Oh, I wasn't judging what it could have been either.
Okay, let's just if we're going to keep mentioning how there was just enough going, we'll never get out of this. So let's just move on. The basic point is it's terrible of an ending for me because it devalues character relationships in general. And like I said, I also, of course, don't appreciate the fact that they're taking that they're having a couple like this just thrown in here haphazardly for no good reason that doesn't fit anything with the story. It's just it's a complete disservice to representation of this particular group of people. You know, like just treat them when you're creating a fucking romance, regardless of what kind of romance it is. Treat these two people like fucking human beings. That's all I'm asking. I don't think I'm asking for much, am I? Anyway, yeah, that ending sucked. What else? Probe ending. Can someone explain to me what the fuck this is doing in the show? Teo already gave his theory. I don't buy it. So, Jova, why is this in the show?
I guess I have to agree with Teo here. I mean, stupid sports. I mean, okay, speaking as myself, though, I do get what they were trying to do. You know, build up the lore of Avatar with having, you know, stuff. Now that we're not in a bunch of wars, see, maybe people make games or sports out of bending. You know, it's a neat concept. The problem was the execution.
I guess. Fine. Whatever, moving on.
You know, it's the most basic thing. It was meant to, like, help build up lore.
Here's an idea. Okay, you want to do that? Fine. Here's the problem. Have it be more of a background thing like Harry Potter did with Quidditch, and for the love of God, make it simple and easy to understand and actually explain the fucking rules to us.
I mean, okay, it could have even been a thing at the forefront. The major problem with pro bending is just that they cannot tell us the rules of pro bending properly to save their lives.
When even the official Korra wiki can't make heads or tails of this thing, there's a problem.
Yeah. Pro bending was just a dud.
This is the internet. The internet is a space of people that will dedicate an immeasurable amount of time at trying to understand the most incomprehensible of things that have ever been imagined, and yet cats. They were and cats, and yet they haven't been able to crack this one. just think about that for a minute. Anyway. What else? The love triangle sucks. Dwebs covered it. Season 1 is. Go ahead, too. You're asking about what I think about Korra as a whole?
Yeah.
Okay.
Might as well think that.
Sure. Okay. Season 1 through 2, she's nothing but a hot-headed bitch who does nothing but snap at people for the most minuscule of things. And
I can actually like dramatize it. Korra, I think you might need to reconsider what you're doing here.
Okay, I can understand what they were trying. I cannot really somewhat understand. Aang was a very nice, chill guy who was a very typical protagonist. That is the very nice guy who's very easy to relate to. And of course, he's a typical fantasy hero, basically. You know, he's the Luke Skywalker. He's the whatever. You get what I'm going with this. The basic point is he's the traditional fantasy protagonist that you always see. Yeah. So for Korra, they wanted to go the other direction, just not to have, just so they wouldn't have just an Aang clone, kind of like how Catriel Layton is not all that polite and is very excitable compared to Herschel being more restrained and polite.
For better or worse.
All for the purpose of not having an Herschel clone. So here's the problem. You went too far in the other direction. Like, you made her such a complete, unlikable bitch. And if you want, it wouldn't even be so bad if you at the very least made the show aware, and you try to deconstruct her lack of empathy, like this. And you could have them literally call her out on bitch, and like the show doesn't even seem aware of how unlikable she is.
Actually, it does. Like, as we pointed out in season 2, the problem is how they go about actually addressing it.
That's the thing.
Reset.
Even if they technically, That's the thing, Jova. Even before the reset, even when they do technically acknowledge that she's stepping out of line, like Teo said, nobody does anything. Nobody scolds her. Nobody.
That's what keeps Tenzin for me for having liked him in season 1 and 2, because outside of saying Tora, please stop, he barely does jack shit about it.
Oh yeah, exactly why I said that they do it, but it's just not in the most satisfying of ways.
Okay, I'm going. How do I stop this guy from killing people? Hey, could you stop killing people? Okay, thanks. No, it's do something about this bitch, please. You're not gonna. Sometimes she'll get a pat on the back, going, "Look, Korra, calm down," and then she just doesn't, and the characters just stand there and watch her.
He just kind of goes in the opposite direction.
Oh, they're like, "Korra, could you please calm down?" And then she goes, "Well, I tried." Okay. That's. I think I've reached the limits of what I can do in this situation. Yeah, it sucks. But yeah, then we have the reset, because the only way they can turn this character into any kind of a somewhat tolerable character is by completely resetting her character, because the most lazy of writing tricks that you can do, that's when you know the writers know that they fucked up, because they have to pull off this Deus Ex Machina to just completely change her personality. So yeah, that's basically it. At least when Tintin killed animals, he was not laughing maniacally while he was doing it.
Even Korra doesn't laugh maniacally. I don't get it.
Well, I was hyperboling, but whatever.
Hyperbolization.
Hyperbole, but whatever.
Making it the term is making a hyperbole.
Yeah. The basic point is, Korra sucks in those first 2 seasons too. After the reset, she becomes just kind of more bland. It's kind of like the writers at this point are too. Okay, they have to make her really more noble and nice, which is refreshing at first in season 3. The problem is that eventually the novelty wears off. And you start to realize that, okay, she's tolerable now, but at the same time, she's still not that interesting of a protagonist. I mean, the great thing about Aang is that he had that arc, especially in season 3, where he had to deal with the fact that that even though he's a pacifist in a world ruined by war, he's gonna the fact that he has tasked divinely for killing the Fire Lord, even though he's a pacifist who doesn't want to kill everybody. Unfortunately there was kind of a fucking cop out in the original Avatar.
Dump on that one.
But at the very least, they bothered to give Aang an arc that made him an interesting person, without having to make him an asshole. With Korra, they removed her asshole-ish nature, but they didn't really put anything replace it. They just kind of deprived her of. They replaced her nastiness with niceness, and that's nice at first, like I said, but the novelty wears off quick, and that at some point she just kind of becomes the nice bland protagonist of sorts. In season 4, they try to give her somewhat of an arc. Well, no, because we have that thing where she becomes a cripple at the end of season 3, and we have that 3-year skip. Then she's trying to recover her strength and all that jazz, blah, blah, blah. Then we have that thing where Toph trains her so she can remove the metal from her body. And that's fine, I guess. My problem is that what she has to learn to be able to get the metal out of her is not that interesting. It's just very by the numbers. They don't really do that much interesting with Korra. Again, it feels like the writers were afraid of anything they could have done out of Backlash, so they played it as safe. So they played their character as safe as they could possibly do. They played it completely safe. They didn't take any risks, and as a result, it's tolerable. But at the same time, there's nothing interesting about this character to me now. So they basically pick your poison. Have a bland nice character that you don't care about or a character that you hate. I mean, it would be nice to have a middle ground, but I guess we can't have that. Yeah. Aside from that, that's Korra in a nutshell to me, basically too. Like, the writers never had any really great things to do with this character at all. The original plan they had for her screwed up, and their backup plan that they come up with in a hurry didn't really work out much. They played it way too safe. What else can I say? The animation was great. For the most part, there were some bits here where you could tell there was some budget cuts here and there, but that's just an executive thing. That's fine. But for what they had to work with, it's fine. The music was pretty good. As for the other characters, Bolin, I don't see. My problem with Bolin is okay. Going back to Sokka, like the great thing about Sokka is that yes, he was the comic relief character, but the great thing is that in a neat little twist, he also became the kind of the new. He succeeded his father basically in being kind of a general and a born leader of sorts. Like we had an awesome scene where we had that awesome episode where he learned how to sword fight, so he could properly fight opponents. We even had him come into his own as a genuine military leader who I think they established at some point in Korra that he went on to become some kind of important general.
General? Oh, no, councilman.
Okay, councilman. Well, the point is he became a wise leader. That's the basic gist of it. You know, he wasn't just he was like, and even then, even when it comes to the comedy itself, Sokka was generally funny because his comedy always came from various different sources. Specifically, he was always basically kind of the audience's surrogate in a lot of ways because he's the normal guy. He doesn't have powers. In a lot of ways, he does a good job in poking fun at certain silly aspects of the other characters. It worked great that way. My problem with Bolin, on the other hand, is that his humor is way too simple. It always boils down to this. Bolin says something stupid. That's the joke.
Not always, but I see what you mean.
Not always.
I mean, not even really the majority of it. Okay. Season 1... Actually, no, surprisingly not much in Season 1. Season 2... Actually, no, he was better in Season 2. Huh! You know, I guess it's more so in the better seasons now that I think about it.
In Season 2, he had that thing with him being a film
star. The romance subplot as well.
The romance subplot as well, yeah. The problem is that it wasn't all that interesting to me. Like, okay, fine. His thing with Esna was fine. It's fine.
I have my own qualms with it, but I'll bring it up in my final thoughts.
Well, I mean, in terms of comedy.
I know what you
True.
mean. Yeah.
Like whether or not you think it's funny, that's a whole nother subject matter altogether. Like personally, I didn't mind it much.
Oh, it has some funny bits. My main bit was just the wasted potential, but again, I'll get to that in my final thoughts.
It's okay. And yeah, that thing with him being a film star, whatever. Whatever. Really, that's all I can say about that particular subplot. Whatever.
I guess the thing that I'm really surprised about is that the more I think about it, the more Bolin says something dumb thing was actually more in Season 3 than any other season, now that I think about it.
Yeah, that's exactly the thing. My problem, Joe, is that most of the... there's the occasional good joke here and there, but the problem is that a lot of times Bolin's humor resorts to him saying something dumb, and that's basically it. And the big... Okay, it wouldn't be so bad if, like Sokka, he had other aspects to him, you know? Have him have some other thing. Okay, he's an earthbender. Okay, he bends earth. But there's nothing else to this character.
Well, there were his qualms about not being able to metal bend and him finding out that he could lava bend. There was also that bit about him and his brother.
Yeah, we were usually those extra bendings were used a bit more often.
Yeah. For example, his romance with what's her name?
Opal.
Yeah, Opal. Whatever. I don't I still don't really care much for that romance. Like we have said, romance has never exactly been this show's strong point. Aside from maybe Qatar and Aang. He's just not very funny. He's not a very funny character. Mako. whatever. I so don't give
He's
a shit.
Batman.
I so don't give a shit about this character at all in any of the seasons. Like, even when they do try to give him more of a character, it always comes as flat to me. He's just kind of there. He's especially in seasons 1 and 2, where he's just kind of angry dude. He's so uninteresting. He's so boring to me. He has little to no personality whatsoever. Like, ugh. Whatever. What else? Azami. Well, I already did this. Azami is just kind of the taxi driver of the group. Yay. She has a thing with her dad, like Dwez mentioned, but like, we have one episode in season 1, her dad being found out and arrested. Then we kind of move on from that. Then he comes back in season 4, where they have that talk where he becomes Miyazaki and all that shit. And then and it's all for the purpose of him dying, and which is whatever. I didn't care. Sorry. Like you brought this back from season 1, and this was 3 years later, and by this point I so wasn't interested at all. So many bad decisions made when it comes to this. Although, of course, there's also the Nickelodeon stuff. Yeah, but okay, whatever. The basic point is, the writing is a mess. This is a complete mess of a TV show that a lot of times has no idea what the fuck it's doing, has no idea what it wants to be. And it fails on a lot of aspects of the writing. Aaron Haz's absence is so noticeable. Because Aaron Haz was the head writer of the original series, and his departure is so powerfully felt in this show. It's amazing how the lack of one writer, the head writer specifically, changed the whole equation.
I wouldn't say it was just the lack of him that changed the equation. It was the lack of a good portion of the team. Especially since quite a bit of that team actually got to participate more with season 3. It's also basically also a change of vision, which, we kind of discussed in good discussion, came about, thankfully, by season 3.
The basic point is, it just doesn't work. It's way too flawedly written. I can't... Okay, the only thing I can ask is, okay, we're getting... the creators are now making a Netflix live-action reboot of the original series. Does this mean that Korra will follow suit?
Oh.
Well, if we do get that, can you please write a good version this time? Okay, thanks. That's basically it. I'm done.
All right, Shiroi.
Oh, okay. All right.
We had to get to at some point. Might as well.
I mean, might as
my
well.
thoughts on the first 3 seasons will be pretty brief anyway, so... Alright, season 1 is a bit of a mess. Not just because of the pro-bending stuff getting in the way, and to be kind of fair, I guess, it did kind of come into play towards the finale, but it was still pretty intrusive. And there wasn't really any, major hint that it was going to come into play at all. It just seemed that it happened that way. There was just plot point after plot point. But, it was like, normally you have like an A plot, a B plot, and maybe a C plot. This one had A, B, C, D, and you can keep going.
Yeah.
There was just too much going on, and like Dwibs would understand a bit better, but it kind of feels like Waterloo Road, in a sense, which is
Let me
another
guess.
British not exactly a soap opera, but still a British series.
Okay.
There's just
Yeah,
way
I
too
heard
many
of
plot
it.
points introduced, and it's a mess. Korra was pretty intolerable, mostly towards the middle and going on to the ends. I still believe what I said. Like, in the beginning, her attitude definitely came from the fact that, she was raised very differently to Aang. Being the Avatar has a different meaning in the setting of Korra as opposed to The Last Airbender. Where, she's basically been put on a pedestal since a young age. She was pretty much like, this is her life. she's been basically indoctrinated into this. So I can understand her ego, but then she definitely goes too far towards the middle and the end. Like, season 2 was the worst with it, obviously, but, you know, the cracks were there. There was something else I had for season 1 as well, but I... Oh yeah, Amon. Potentially interesting villain. Fundamentally flawed, though.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, very, very clearly in the wrong. I mean, like, well, obviously, villains believe that they're right anyway. It doesn't matter whether they are or not. But it's just the whole thing of, you know, him being a bender, essentially. That really ruined it, I think. The same way another show has Steven Universe has a specific plot point kind of ruined by a particular happening, essentially, that I won't go into because major spoilers. But it's the same thing here. It's like this, but it would have been so much better if Amon was just a non-bender. He would have still been fundamentally wrong, but it still wouldn't, like, I would like it a lot more than I do with that. And didn't really feel like they had a lot of time to establish the characters in the beginning because, you know, they thought they only had the one season. And it felt like we really didn't get to know anybody, although in hindsight I probably would have rather not have known any of these people. Season 2 was a thing that happened.
That's putting it nicely.
That is putting it nicely. I mean, I like a lot of characters who are not exactly morally correct. I'm gonna put it that way. But Korra is just...
Ooh.
I can't even root for Korra's, you know, lack of clear morality because she's just a colossal bitch. And it's like, it's way past the point where, you know, again, her ego coming from the way she was raised. She's just, no, she has a stick up her ass. Like, the way she treats people, she's just, you know, she's manipulative, she's rowdy. Like, it went past the point of, you know, beating the living shit out of people because of justice and basically using her strength to essentially bully people. Like, Korra is just horrible in season 2. Season 2 was horrible in general, but, you know, them's that. I like to repress season 2, so who was the villain for that one?
Unalak.
The end battle.
The guy who's brilliant at the idea of breaking a mystical barrier was to throw water at it.
Water
no,
at it, yeah.
I'm not getting over that.
AKA
Just like I'm not getting over the car in Heavy Rain.
AKA Tarlock 2.0.
No, it's both the water and the shoes. I can't get over those. Go ahead.
The shoes?
The shoes from Quiet Man.
Oh.
The whole plot was about shoes. Moving on. Go ahead.
That's the least of that game's problems, but sure. I don't really know what to say about him, honestly. He's just...
That's because there is nothing to say.
He's a villain.
Yeah, and honestly, my memory of, like, all jokes aside, my memory of season 2 is quite hazy. So
That's why Amazon all constantly wanted you to remind of that.
Remember season 2?
No, I never have to watch it again.
Thank goodness for
Okay.
that.
If I'm gonna watch Korra in the future, I'll just watch season 3 and some of season 4.
But yeah, season 3, that was definitely an improvement. I mean, and in regards to Korra, I wouldn't say it was like her changing character wasn't exactly a 180. It was near enough because she still clearly had, she was clearly still pretty tense. She wasn't yelling at people and being a bitch, but she wasn't exactly cool, calm, and collected either. It just seemed like between seasons she'd taken several years of anger management classes. Again, still very tense, but still not flipping tables because
Yeah, let's be done with that crap.
somebody rubbed her the wrong way, basically.
Or dare to, maybe just do their job.
Yeah. Korra was pretty much the only one in the wrong in season 2 in terms of the main cast. But anyway, season 3. Ba Sing Se is a mess.
Holy heck, yeah.
Even like not in terms of the writing, being flawed or anything. That place is just a mess, and I'm fully on board with, well, now the former king basically saying we're just gonna drop the monarchy because that is the best thing to ever happen to Ba Sing Se.
Actually,
the
that's
monarchy has
someone...
been nothing but trouble. Even in the original show.
Yeah.
I mean, because they couldn't see an evil. They couldn't see evil Clancy Brown.
Evil Clancy Brown.
That place is just corrupt. But yeah, I do agree with you, Dwibs, that it was nice to see that place again. Like, because it was a pretty big part of the original series. Spent a lot of time there, and there was a lot to establish in there. So it was great to see it again. It hadn't changed much, but it was nice to see it again. The conflict with the Beifong sisters was definitely, again, as Pedro was stating earlier, much better in terms of the characters having family issues.
That was the best episode in the show, if you ask me.
It was one of my favorites, yes.
What episode? Sorry.
The one where we have that entire backstory for Beiling, all the
sisters,
all the Beifong sisters, all that backstory and stuff.
Okay.
I mean, the family in general, but the sisters, and then by extension, Toph in season 4. That was some of the best things to come out of it, I think. I mean,
Yes.
I'm not sure what else to say about season 3, really, because it was just a significant improvement. Honestly.
Well, actually, yeah, I have a question because it's something that
you're supposed to say. What do you think of Korra's character as a whole?
I'm not done with the final thoughts.
Yeah,
anyway,
that's actually for later. But since we're tied to season 3, Shirei, something that I will mention for myself better in my final thoughts. What do you think of the character of Kai?
Well, that's what I forgot.
That was the kid, right?
Yeah.
He's there, basically.
I asked her.
Sorry.
I mean, he's not great, but he's at least helpful, which is more than I can say for Asami at this point. Like he definitely
got done by the thief.
Sorry?
I was gonna say, it's bad, but one of the main characters is being outdone by a freaking thief.
These are very versatile.
Asami's the main character.
The main character? That's news to me.
She's supposed to be.
She is.
Whatever, moving on, Shiroi.
Anyway, go on to
at
season
MLP
4.
And saying that Applejack is a main character.
Oh
dear.
That's harsh.
Oh, them's fighting words, Shiroi. Or fighting herds.
Go on to season 4.
Well, to cap off season 3, the villain, whatever his name is, I can't remember a lot of the character names. In general, this show, I'm just, even though towards the end of season 3 and throughout the first couple of thirds of season 4, I'll say, I actually started to care about what was going on and such. Just nowhere near to the extent that I did for The Last Airbender. Because those were characters I cared a lot about. Did
you mean The Legend of Aang?
Semantics.
Doesn't matter.
Just because UK named it doesn't mean it's always what everyone will think of, Dibs.
All right.
You know, is it definitely more invested in, you know, Korra basically being tortured and poisoned? But nowhere near as I was invested in Zuko's backstory and all of that stuff.
That's not even a fucking contest.
I know, but it's sad. That's the sad thing, though. Really, that it's not a contest.
Give me just a moment, Shiro. Can I ask about what the fuck was the point of bringing in Dante Basco into this? He wasn't gonna do anything. Seriously, moving on.
Maybe he wanted to, because he's quite passionate about
Possible.
these sorts of things. Remember, he really wanted to be in that shit show of a movie. So
Honestly,
yeah.
it has been in general the Fire Nation is a complete disappointment in this series. But go on,
they were
Shiro.
barely present. So.
Exactly.
Although I think the counselors spoke about that in season 4, where they were like, "We're not getting involved
Yeah,
in this
cop
war
out. They
shit
had a
again."
cop out. I know that. It
Yeah.
doesn't make it less.
It's
Go
like the
on,
last time
go
that they
on.
got
I'll
involved.
say my final thoughts anyway.
Oh yeah, I forgot about Janoris.
Janoris.
That's basically me trying to combine Janora and Jesus. It didn't quite work out, but you know, she was definitely she was more of a plot device than a character. I mean, you know, she was fine, but in terms of her actual involvement, yeah, definitely more plot device. Again, still more involvement than Asami at this point, who's
That's
the
sad.
taxi driver and occasional mechanic. Because that's the thing, it's like she did do a little bit more in terms of the mechanics and such, but we didn't get to see all of it. Like when I said it happened off screen, I did say it was mostly off screen, and it did. Like any scene that we saw of her actually, you know, using her craft, happened for less than 5 minutes at a time. That she was barely involved, and if anything, again, she was a taxi driver. Janora was more front and center, but again, due to being a plot device. But anyway, like Tenzin has more involvement than her, and he's usually just there to be tortured by the writers. I feel like he's the one I feel sorry for the most out of this series, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah. Season 4. In terms of villains, Legend of Korra has never been that great anyway. And I forget her name.
Kavira?
Who?
Kavira, there we go. Kavira is one of the better ones, but mostly because there is some kind of build-up there. I mean, she's very, very obviously evil. I mean, the smirking, her demeanor. Like, again, this series as a whole hasn't been very subtle.
When I
I
talk
think
about Shiro, it's so morally ambiguous. I mean, she gives Thanos a run for his money.
Okay. To be credit, it's not like with a mom where they're trying to be morally ambiguous. Like, it's clear that she's supposed to be evil. Also, Thanos
I was mostly joking.
Also,
but yeah,
Thanos
sure.
is nowhere close to morally ambiguous. He's insane and honestly, no. I mean, you know that he is wrong, but I digress.
But yeah. And I mean, again, she was more tactical. She sort of orchestrated a lot of background stuff. There was a lot of manipulation on her part as well. Like, definitely more tactful than Korra, anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I'm trying to think about this. Again, I was a lot more emotionally involved with the characters and such. I felt like I was a bit surprised when I found out we were actually already on the last couple of episodes, because honestly, the part where she started to essentially head over to the it wasn't the Earth Kingdom, what was it? Or was it the Earth
Republic
Kingdom?
City.
But Republic City, that sort of felt like mid-season, honestly. Like, because, she was still pretty, not reasonable, but she was at least more negotiable, I guess, in terms of how she deals with other people. And I thought that after that point, things would then kick into high gear for the rest of the season, where she goes completely berserk on everyone. But no, like, we were actually nearing the finale for that already, and I thought that just felt like weird pacing to me. I'm not sure what the rest of you thought of that.
Probably. I was so bored I didn't even notice.
Quickly.
Yeah.
Like, also PTSD is a bitch, but Korra is they definitely use it as more of a plot device with Korra, I think, as well. Like, a lot of the things that are used to bring down our cast are plot devices usually, and not actual conflicts. So, relationships.
Oh boy.
Again, like, I agree with Dwibs. Not so much when it comes to Last Airbender, but with this one in particular, the show has never been great with it. And I'm not sure what the rest of you think of this kind of viewpoint, but I'm among what is probably the minority, even if by a small margin, who believes that the most interesting part of a relationship with a character is the actual relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of TV shows, especially cartoons, do the whole, will they, won't they song and dance very front and center. When we've seen that story thousands of times. The actual relationship dynamic is far more interesting.
Yes.
It would be nice if, because this show, due to Nickelodeon basically sticking their noses in, and again, the writers thinking they didn't have past the first season, it would have been nice if instead of trying to establish relationships, they could have pre-existing relationships already.
Yeah, that would have been
that
so
would work
cool.
far better, and I think that would work far better for TV shows anyway. I'm more interested in the actual dynamic between the characters in said relationship, not the will they, won't they.
You hear that, Marvel?
Interesting. What, Java?
Just saying, you hear that, Marvel? Trust me, any Pearl Marvel fans know exactly what I'm talking about.
Disney are serial offenders with this kind of thing.
That too.
Especially with their cartoons. With Kim Possible, it wasn't as bad. But
oh, no. Kim Possible did that well because,
Star
that's
is
part
a
of...
pain in the ass with it.
See, Kim Possible, that was high school teen drama, so that was easier to get why they did that. Korra doesn't...
It was still more of a background element as opposed to... Until the movie, at least.
Ah, yes. And it was so the drama. No pun intended.
Yeah, I forgot that was the name. So, yeah, it would be nice if they actually used their time to, have relationships already being there. It would have made the Korrasami thing a lot better.
Yeah, speaking of which, I'm actually interested to know.
Okay. I had a few months back, I actually had a briefing on what the writers talked about. Apparently, Nickelodeon wouldn't let them do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they just had to put in all those little bits, and especially the ending, to basically, quote-unquote, confirm it without saying it. And I agree with Pedro, it's just a very confusing ending.
Tell me about it.
In general. And yeah, it would have been much better if the two of them, just as friends, nothing else, were like, hey, we're gonna just go chill in the spirit world for a bit. I think
Sorry,
that
Shira, they held hands. It's already too far.
they looked at each other for more than 5 seconds.
But actually, this reminds me of something. Probably you noticed too if you paid attention. It's something that I wanted to mention in the finale, but I wanted to say for this. The entire dialogue between Korra and Asami at the very end, right before the final scene, guys, I'm not joking. It's fanfiction tier.
Oh god, yeah.
I have
Oh,
seen
heck
so many
yeah.
fanfiction that have the exact same lines and situation. They're having a party, these two characters are in the background, they're speaking a bit, and then they're in love. Boom.
Tio. I know. I was one of the main people who watched Book
just-
4 air, and by Book 4 air, I mean the original series, back when Book 4 air was the popular fan fiction to make in the day.
But
I
I
knew
would
the
believe,
dance.
but I would believe what Shiri said about the writers. But I'll save it for myself. Continue.
Well, that was from their own words, because like a lot of, especially in recent years, a lot of writers for particularly animated TV shows have blogs, more often than not on Tumblr.
Not anymore. Rest in peace,
It
Tumblr.
seems to be pretty common these days, and I believe it was around the time the episode actually aired. There was something about this outside of the because I know about the Twitter stuff as well. It was outside of the Twitter thing, where they mention how they really wanted to do this, but it was the only way they could do it. No, it wasn't. Like, this is something that really annoys me to no end, because
Here's an idea.
okay.
If you can't do it properly, just don't do it.
Yeah, because I won't specify what it is for those who haven't seen it, but me and Pedro were discussing Ralph Breaks the Internet before. And
Ralph Breaks the Internet is about relationship codependency and how toxic it can be to said relationship. This is
Yes,
just shitty writing.
they went 110% with it, to the point where I actually felt uncomfortable watching the movie at times, but that's what was supposed to happen.
When you're exploring a topic like this, you have to go into
either
uncomfortable
do it
territory.
or
Otherwise,
you
you're doing a
don't.
disservice. Sorry.
Like,
Go, finish.
Yeah, like you said, you either commit or you don't, or you don't do it at all, like, kind of thing. None of this subtlety bullshit. Just like, do the thing. That's how I'm gonna put this. That's how I'm putting this.
Writers, do the thing.
But we can't pick back Nickelodeon won't let
I need
us.
to. This is something I need to verify, but supposedly, and this isn't a spoiler, this is just a background element in Star vs. the Forces of Evil. There is an episode where there is a concert scene. And you know how you get, particularly in American TV shows, when there's a concert, there's that one song, and you have all the couples in the audience. That kind of thing. In this particular episode, there are actually a handful of same-sex couples in the background. Like, there's no, real focus on it, because again, they're not the main cast. It isn't really that important to, like, it is kind of important to Star's conflict in that episode. It has nothing to do with the characters being gay, it's just the relationship stuff in general. And apparently, and again, I need to verify this, because, Disney, Darren Nefsey, the writer, was actually told, this isn't a good idea. And she, bless her, asked one very simple question. Why?
Why isn't it?
Yeah, why no? Why can't I do this? Why? And that's a very good question, because, and this is something that a lot of people are aware, but a lot of people don't talk about. Instead of actually growing some balls, a lot of TV show writers would rather, well, not the writers, the executives would rather, bend over backwards for the snooty parents who aren't actually that invested in the show anyway, who aren't watching it, instead of actually committing to what they want to do. And apparently when Nefsey asked them why, they keeled over backwards for her, because they didn't actually have a reason. Like, a legitimate reason that wasn't, we can't piss off conservatives. Like, if you're going to do the thing, do the fucking thing. Commit to what you're doing. This saying is great now. I'm gonna keep using it.
I told you
Like-
Varric was great for that stuff.
You
If
see
you
how
really
good
wanted
Varric
to
is
do
for
it,
you?
you need to have it there. Like, there was no point in the characters being in a relationship. Like, not just the Korrasami. Like,
It's
going back
funny-
to what I said earlier,
yeah.
in general. Like, they didn't flush out anything at all, really. I mean, well, aside from the love triangle stuff, but that was a complete mess.
You know what they could have done? Just do what they did with Varric and Julie.
Yeah, that was, like, they had... Like, Korra actually...
That's sorry, man, but that's what I want. Someone make a YouTube compilation of Varric scenes.
I think
There
people
probably is.
have.
That
I-
probably already is. Quick
He-
question, Shiroi. Quick
Hmm?
question, Shiroi. Have you seen Brokeback Mountain?
No.
Because I think that's a movie that you will appreciate a lot. Because that movie was already doing that stuff that you're asking about way before it was the hot ticket as it is now, basically.
Yeah. But yeah, it's like challenge your executives because they don't have a good reason.
Now, granted, I mean, there's every possible chance that if you challenge the executives, even if you do it right, they could end up firing your ass.
They could, but when your show is very popular, firing you would affect their bottom line.
Yeah, because
They would rather piss off conservatives than that's the one thing money talks.
Sure, implying Nickelodeon cared about the show.
True.
All right. So
Stars by Disney, but
No,
anyway.
no,
Oh,
no,
I thought you
no.
meant
We were
Korra,
talking about
sorry.
Korra.
Mhm. But yeah, they shouldn't have tried to bring Korrasami as a couple into the show. If they wanted to establish a relationship in the comics, then fair enough, but it should have been left completely out of the show. If they were going to basically tread on ice like this. And-
Honestly, it
yeah.
sounds like they could have just left it all well alone and just start the relationship in the comics. Because from what I've seen,
That's literally
That's
what
what-
I just said.
that's what she's just said. Yeah.
And Dwibs, you mentioned Varric. Like, Korra just has examples of how to write good relationships and how to write god awful ones.
Cheerio, I disagree with the whole god awful relationship thing in the case of Korrasami because there wasn't one.
Well, again, there was
You
the
have a
love
bad one if it's
triangle,
not there.
or square, or hexagon.
roll
I thought you were
save.
I thought you were on about the one at the finale.
No, I just mean the relationships in this show in general.
Yeah. So basically, the show either does them well, badly, or well, not.
Julie has so much patience.
Amen to that.
I've got to admire that level of patience. Although she did kind of, tell him where to stick it towards the end, honestly.
He had it coming.
Well, yes. And they were all the better for it, I think. That was the one relationship, because didn't exactly expect it to happen until towards the end, but it was so glad that it happened anyway. It was just nice, and they should have ended it with that, honestly. Not the Korrasami bit kind of dampened just dampened everything about it. And I think I'm done.
Okay, routine
Guess,
question then. What do you
yes,
think
about
about Korra
Oh,
as a character?
her,
overall?
yeah, the protagonist. uh, Well, I think I already. I don't think I can say anything that I hadn't said already, because again, I understand her. I understand the way she is towards the beginning. Then she became way too hot-headed and bitchy. She was a little better, in season 3 and 4. A bit of a mood shift, but again, she was still quite tense, so I didn't think it was a complete 180. Again, it was near enough that, but not exactly. I've seen worse. I've seen worse rewriting characters. Basically, it happened with a Steven Universe character, and it happened with Fluttershy in MLP. Complete rework. Although in the case of the latter, she needed it desperately.
Oh yeah, Fluttershy.
Like that rewrite came for the better, basically.
Which season are you referring to, perchance?
I'm not sure which season, but it happened around the time that Easy Breezies came out.
Oh, that rewrite, yeah.
Yeah, everything was so much better from then for her. I haven't watched the show in a while, but she appears to be the best character anyway. But anyway, back to Korra. I just can't really root for her in anything, really. Again, I like characters that aren't exactly morally sound, but Korra's just a mess. Like, I just don't like her. Even with the change, I don't like her. There's that.
Guess I'll
All
go
right.
next then.
Sorry, Jova, it's mostly because of the time, because otherwise I couldn't be able to speak once you're done, and I know you're gonna have to say a lot. So
Well,
if you
not
don't mind.
necessarily. I won't have to say a lot, but it is getting late either way, and I know that you are time zone wise, and your thoughts may take a while.
Mostly
so...
because I want to express myself in a tone that is, most natural as possible. Okay, I'm gonna do something that some people made in, some documentaries in my country do, and start with the ending and then go back to the beginning. I'm gonna start with season 4. I'm gonna start with season 4 because, it's the one that I haven't said anything, and I'm not gonna dance around it. Season 4 is the worst to me. Like,
what?
Really?
Even more than season 2. Yes, even worse than Korra flipping the
interested.
table or the kaiju fight. Why? Because, multitude of reasons, but to simplify it grossly, season 2 is pure bad writing. Season 4 is a conga line of disappointment after disappointment, where you can see the potential, and they're so close to get to it, but they don't. And the end result, ranges from mediocre to annoying to just god awful. I honestly consider that worse. And also, on a mathematical point of view, if you because the things that I like in season 4, mainly toughest cameo, Varric's portion of a recap, the honor that Kuvira has for being a female character that had the distinct honor of being a fictional character that has the shortest amount of time she was considered my waifu. And
you considered her your waifu? I didn't know
remember,
that.
Jova, the episode where she introduced, and I quickly backpedaled as soon as she revealed her true colors. And I guess the fight against the Colossus at the end. Those in total barely constitute an episode on its own. Season 2 already has the two-parter origin story that I infinitely like more better. So by mathematical approach, Season 2 is a bit better than 4 to me. Even if it doesn't mean that much, because Season 2 is still full of bullshit. But even so, the rest of Season 4 is just painful to watch. Korra spends at least 75% of the season being a complete dickwad, where a story arc, both physically and mentally, could have been easily resolved in a two-parter and having him start doing shit up. Because, I'm not gonna lie, the same thing that I said for season 2, where I would have rage quit the moment Korra became that unlikable, I would have done the same exact thing when Korra was defeated by Kuvira the first time. No joke. Like, it was so aggravating. And the fact that we came so far and we were still having that kind of bullshit. Like, season 4 feels such a step backward to me, but it goes even back. And not to mention, 4 is one-dimensional as it was, and for how stupid, sort of how full of stupid shit Unalak was, at least he got what he deserved. Kuvira doesn't get the luxury, even though the situation is served on a silver platter. Her own lust for power and arrogance caused the Spirit Vine Cannon to overload, and she could have easily been died for an explosion. A karmic death full and through. But we cannot have that. Instead, while I appreciate that she could be used for Korra to have a moment where she tries to convince a villain's character with a speech, not only the speech is completely out of nowhere because Korra compares herself to her, even though the comparison makes no fucking sense, But Korra even had a similar moment of a conversation that ended up in acceptance with Zahir in the same season, where she had to get over PTSD. So it's completely pointless, and overall it gets me blue-balled on another villain yet again. Like,
You mean them not dying?
yeah. Not to mention, since the parallels with the Nazi is pretty much one-to-one, I'm sure that just because Kuvira got taken over, the rest of the army is going to be completely okay with the situation. There's totally not going to be any more fight about it, I swear.
I believe there's another comic coming up addressing that.
I understand, Waves, but the show treats it... Honestly, the best comparison that I do with Season 4 is with Star Wars Episode 1, where as soon as Darth Maul dies, the show treats itself like the war is over, even though it's clearly not. So, there you go. Not to mention, the second half of the show, Season 4, like I did mention, feels scary enough like Knack 2, complete with the giant mechanical being at the end. Like, it's so jarring for all the similarities with that happen.
I found it more entertaining than that too.
Hell yeah.
I can see, I can see that. It's still not enough to me, if you ask. But let's now take a step backward and start from the beginning, because this show is a fucking mess. Like you said, just like the ending, this show was lame as shit. It's what downs it entirely to me on a concept alone. To me, is the setting. Like I mentioned, I understand. I am usually a fan of steampunk. My favorite manga of all time is Full Metal Alchemist, so I perfectly understand a concept that would be similar to this one, with a modern setting that has abilities that bend the elements to the will of mankind. But to go from the setting of Lester Bender, this Asian-inspired fantasy realm, to a more modern setting with cars and, sports similar to ours, politics similar to ours, and even parallels more closer to ours, it removes the magic. It literally is to me like the equivalent of that scene in Neverending Story 3 where the rock biter's son is watching television. It's just, no. It's wrong on so many reasons. And ironically enough, Season 3 is the best to me because it completely deviates from that. We immediately jump away from Republic City because that's clearly bullshit. And instead we go back to settings that we are familiar with, Basing say, and new settings that feel more at ease as an evolution of the original world setting, the Metal Clan city. It's a modern city, but it feels more like a modern city that's based on Asian culture. Not to mention, here's another parenthesis. For a world that's completely, entirely, from top to bottom, inspired by Asian culture, a city like Republic City, which is based on New York, completely sticks out like a sore thumb. I have no idea why they even bothered with that, just because it would have been cool, I guess. But the only good thing that would have been come out from this modern setting is the idea of having a super weapon based on the spirit vines, which is a parallel to the nuclear energy. But even then, it's not worth the wait. It's not worth the whole. And keep in mind also the concept on paper, I can get behind the idea of using bending for mundane stuff and how it shapes our world. But when it comes to the execution, it falls flat on its face. The pro bending is completely atrocious. Never mind the fact that I'm not a sports fan in general. Pro bending clearly could not get interested at all in the whole thing. The usage to modern equipment like ships, boats, and cars, and even some of the planes. Like those mech suits were kind of an interesting idea, but were not used that much at all in the series. So, whatever. But that's just for the setting alone. Like I said, that's the major culprit for me. Not manages to get in the show until season 3. But the other two things that hang me down from the show are, one, the distribution of the characters, how each of them gets their screen time, how they are grouped together, and how they interact with the world. And second, the world building. The major problem that makes these series not work to me most of the time is that there are a gajillion questions raised on the rest of the world that we never know. Most importantly, the Fire Nation.
I thought you were going to bring that up, and I
Well,
cannot blame you.
Like, the fact that we are so obscured by the Fire Nation, the fact that the first series was all about a journey from the characters visiting top to bottom the entire world, was the perfect conduit for us to understand the world, visiting the location like in an RPG. That's the ideal story for an RPG. In order to make your world interesting, have your characters visit it all together. That's also, by the way, one of the reasons why Final Fantasy XIII doesn't work, because there are a lot of locations that you don't even visit, but I'm digressing. Here in this show, we're stuck most of the time in Republic City. Sometimes we go in the South Pole, whatever. And even in season 3, we only see Ba Sing Se and the Metal Clan City. I keep forgetting what it's called. But aside from that, we know basically nothing else. We don't know how the society is recouped entirely. I mean, we don't know how the technology evolved for a lot of people, people, stuff like that. But this brings me to the other thing that I mentioned, the character distribution. The fact that most of the characters are separated, they're not even in big groups, doesn't help at all with their establishment. The reason why Azami is not used that much, the reason is not used that much. The reason why Bowling is an annoying piece of shit. Yes, I'm not sugarcoating this either. Bowling is quite possibly one of my least favorite characters in this entire show. It's like...
You don't like his comedy either?
Most of the time. The only thing that I legitimately liked was the put a sock in it of Zahir at the end of season 3. But hey, that's season 3. Everyone gets automatically magically better in season 3 for some reason. I don't know why.
Included. Milo included.
All right, Tenzin's children. Ginora's ex machina aside, I didn't really bother with them, so I wasn't even that pissed about them. Even the fart joke of Milo, like, I'd say, yeah, it's a JoJo reference. There you go.
Oh, JoJo did fart jokes?
Remember Iggy, season part 3.
Good point.
Although I'm not sure comparing a child to a dog is a good thing, but whatever. What I was saying, all right, the distribution of the characters. Season 3 has something going on with the new air nomads, trying to reunite some of the characters, introducing some of the ones. But it doesn't do much. And some of the new characters that are introduced, namely Kai, can get on my nerves. Yes, Kai to me is the lowest point of season 3. He's an annoying little brat that barely has character involvement, and the situation gets resolved because it turned out to be right. That's just what we like. A character that is so annoying and he still manages to save the day, not because he learns something, but because his arrogance pays off. That's fantastic. The situation with the characters comes back ultimately in season 4, which brings us to season 4. What's the other major problem with me to season 4? For being a climatic conclusion, it barely feels like it. I think it was connected to what Shiro was saying. Compared to the original series book 3, we had practically everyone that had at least a minimal screen time in the previous seasons come into play in some form, not even at the climax, but in the mid-season climax with the Day of the Eclipse. So we have two situations where this has to play. In this season, in season 4 of Korra, most of the characters that we have encountered through the journey, especially some of the ones in season 3 that desperately needed to come back into play, mainly Oppo, or for example, Tenzin's brother, the rest of Aang's children, almost completely forgot, or are at best background characters It's a disappointment and insulting, if you ask me, for anyone who gave a damn to them. Like, I wouldn't want to see if Bolin's and Opal's relationship would have gone maybe somewhere, because I wasn't really caring. But if season 3 was an indication to go by, I wouldn't want to know more. But instead, it's used for a pointless tension moment because Bolin has the bright idea to follow Rule 63 Hitler. It's. Or, for example, like I said, Tenzin's brother. Like, it started a bit annoying, but at least he learned stuff and he became also competent airbender. I wanted to know more about him and to see more of him, but we don't. It's in season 4. Season 4 is almost completely focused on Bolin, Varric, and Korra when it comes to main characters. Which let's talk about Varric, because unlike the others in this group, Varric didn't really, convince me that much. I would agree that near the end of the show, he really gained points, and if I had to choose, I prefer much Julie and her character arc compared to Varric's. Varric's is a good source of comedy. I would admit that, but I didn't pay too much attention, nor I was caring too much where he was going. Like I said, though, for example, his portion of recap in season 4 is one of the things that I actually like from the season. But I was caring more about Julie and what her agenda was. Her ultimate. I like the fact that when she meets up with Barrick, she steps her foot down and imposes her rules. But it felt as if their wedding at the end felt still a bit wrong because it didn't give me the idea that Barrick had learned much from his mistakes. Instead, was still in his goofy persona. So I'm guessing Julie just accepted him for all he was. All right. Who else?
Tenzin?
Oh yeah, that's another thing. For example, and I'm going back to the point that I was saying. For example, characters like the twins, the children of Unarak, are not used at all after season 2. There's a cameo in season 3, but that's it. I was hoping there was even
also that cameo in season 4 too.
Also, even Tough. I was so convinced that they brought her back just to have her also for the climax, but no. She actually means her words. After the attack on the rail cannon first, she's gone. Which brings me back also to another thing. Which brings me back to another thing. The fact that when it comes to returning characters, I'm sorry, I'm still convinced this is the vibe that we're getting. We're going full Blues Brothers 2000 territory. The characters that are not dead are depressed, moaning, and full of regrets because they made so many bad decisions in their life. I can understand if someone like Aang or Toph did it, but having the entire cast being reduced to this, and that's the ones we know. One other thing that bums me the most is that aside from that mini flashback in season 1, we have no idea.
We don't know what happened to Sokka.
Yeah, what the fuck, man? I'm sorry. For fans of the original series, this really does feel like a slap in the face. And
let's not forget, it literally starts in season 1 with them teasing us about them finding Zuko's mom, only to say, "Oh, sorry, you gotta buy the books for that."
I guess Shiri were the most lucky ones to not care about that. But whatever. Yeah, that's another thing. The reason why also I'm saying this is because the original show, aside from those two things, Toph's parent and Zuko's mom, was super tight when it came to continuity. It didn't left stones unturned. If there was an arc to be resolved, it did. If there were answers to be told, they did. So it felt rewarding for paying attention to it. Korra does not. Korra forgets things, makes you questions more things. It leaves you so many things open, and not even open to interpretation. It literally asks you hanging why or what or who.
It's like we said before. In Avatar, you were rewarded for paying attention. In Korra, it feels like you're punished for paying attention. Let's not forget how you tried to make heads or tails of the rules of pro bending, and well, we all know how that
I already mentioned about pro bending, so I'm not going to spend time to it. Sorry. If I have to rank the season, obviously it would be 3, 1, 2, 4. But also there's let me talk about the villains for a second, because I already mentioned Kuvira and how so much of a terrible disappointment she is to me. No, not Una Lucky Season, Amon. Okay, you know how I hated the Muggle power trope. You know the
Yeah.
fact that the idea, mostly because of hindsight, obviously, the idea of removing the magical element to a world in order to make it more like ours, for a viewer, to me, is detrimental because it means one of the reasons why people, I know if it's not for everything there's the same thoughts, but one of the reasons why I would watch a show with fantastical elements is because I want to disconnect for a second at least from our world and all the shitty things that are happening right now. You know, the last thing that I want to watch is someone in that world saying, "Oh, these things that makes this world unique are bad. We should be more sterile, more like implied, more like the viewers at home."
Yeah.
This is just. I'm sorry if I exaggerate by saying this, but it generally makes me want to vomit.
No, I see what you mean.
I'm sorry if it comes out of me, but the idea is that I really don't like it.
I think it ties into the overall thing. It's like, well,
fantasy
season
storytelling.
It's like I said, also connecting to the setting. If it's like we got a sequel to Lord of the Rings, set in like say 100 years later, and we see stuff like Minas Tirith becoming this modern city with
Don't
skyscrapers.
give Peter Jackson any ideas.
Don't worry, Pedro. The Tolkien Corporation seems to be holding on that. But what I was saying is, Amon, despite this trope, Amon, I could have get behind him a bit. But as the series progresses, it becomes worse. And it ultimately ends out in a disappointment. I'm glad that at least he dies. They didn't went the fire or say, "Oh, I will get you next time, Korra, next time."
You know, as far as the characters know, he's still out there. Like, I love how none of the characters
like I said,
ever
Joba, I
bring
was
up that.
dreading the fact that we say, "Oh no, he survived the explosion and he's back in one of the later seasons." But thankfully, no. Unalak is stupid, but I will say this for the later part of the series, to me is entertainingly stupid. The whole trying to remove a barrier with water and becoming the Dark Avatar, it's fanfiction tier, but I was kind of laughing my ass off through the whole thing. So at least he accomplished something. The problem is that I could not take it seriously as a result, which is detrimental to the season and the show as a whole. Obviously, the villains of season 3 are my favorite. And I'm actually okay with the idea of Zahir actually being left alive. I'm guessing also because of a balance being the fact that the rest of the teammates died, some of them in very creative ways, especially like Minghua's death by the end of Mako. The fact that Mako manages to take advantage strategically of the water caves into electrocutor. That's amazing and brutal at the same time. That's the kind of villain death scene that I want for this show.
Oh, how about Combustion Woman's death, using her own power against her that way?
It's off-screen discretion, but it's fine, honestly. It's interesting how they had her like Roman subplot with Zahir, the last thing right before she dies. But I'm guessing it was for building her character a bit, I suppose.
And it'll build up
like
to the point where Zahir learns how to fly, because at that point he's lost.
My favorite of a bunch is Gazan, aka Magma Bending Jesus.
Oh heck yeah, he's such a
He's
dude,
entertaining and gets his shit done, and he's also a bit of affably, you know, the fact that he's okay with his defeat as well, and how he respects his opponents, like especially bowling. Oh yeah, since I'm not with the villains because I want to go to Kuvira again, let's talk about the team avatar for a second. I'm gonna be extremely quick on this because Mako is the character that I wanted to like the most because I'm a huge fan of Jason Todd. And Mako felt to me the character that was mostly associated with that, and I would have loved the idea of these edgy anti-hero fire-bending, like Shadow the Hedgehog, bursting people with fire if they didn't comply. And the idea of him being a cop was perfect for it. But they waste him big time. When he doesn't chase his brother's Kurt or tries badly to have a relationship with Korra or Azami, he's a completely whipped guy, either from Lin or from the Air Prince. I completely didn't like what we did with Mako in season 4. having to be the babysitter of his new character that, yes, has a moment of redemption in the climax, but otherwise he's an annoying little shit nugget. Just, no. Volin, like I said, Volin is one of the worst characters to me. I don't like his humor. I don't like the fact that he doesn't really have a growth, aside from the fact that he understands maybe, just maybe, Kuvira might have been the wrong horse to bet on. And the fact that after that is, the only one relationship where they try to get him with Opal is terribly handled. And this ties to me also with the ending of season 4. You think that will be the thing that I hate the most, but I just don't care, honestly. And it's not even a thing of, Korrazami is insulting. I understand how it is kind of a slap in the face when it comes to LGBT representation. But for the ending in itself, Korra could have chose any partner that she wanted, and it would have been the same to me. I just didn't care or find it offensive, for that matter. I understand that it should have been developed more, but that in itself doesn't, compared to the rest of the shit that season 4 pissed me off, that was just, okay. And like I said, the last bit of dialogue is pure fanfiction tier, so I'm convinced that the writers put it in at the last second because they didn't. It's not even the thing like they didn't know to understand it, because there is a way to end it. Where are they now segment, because they don't do it. They barely do it. Going back again to the lack of world building.
Guess they really didn't do the thing.
Azami is a complete waste of potential, and not in a sense that, I understand that the writers didn't know to do it there, because there is stuff that you can do with her. She should be a non-comedic version of Sokka, because she doesn't have bending. Originally, when I saw her in promotional materials and stuff, I thought she was a firebender because the red clothes and everything, but no, she's just a normal human. The fact that she uses gadgets, especially their electric gloves, was interesting to me. I wanted to see more of that, but she barely contributes at all, and it's just a waste. It's not even funny. Like, her story arc with her father in season 4 is there. The fact that they changed her father from Roosevelt to Miyazaki is just, what? In 3 years, really? But I get that they did that in order to try to build up a bit on her, but at that point the damage was already done, and I wasn't caring anymore. And so okay, put it like this. Azami, in the final segment with Korra, to me, it's like the segment of a roulette that has been spinned. Inside, it feels to me like the writers had like a roulette with the characters and say, this one goes with Korra at the end. And there you go. It's Azami. But aside from that, I think the last thing... Tenzin. Like I said, Tenzin didn't grow on me at all in the first 2 seasons. I thought he was horribly used and completely, utterly whipped, both by his wife, his children, and Korra herself, which I'll get to in a second. But thankfully, season 3 does try to... Even though season 3 doesn't immediately give him more dignity, remember, there's the whole point of where the Air Nomad camp basically shits on him because herpy-derp is so behind the times. It's just... no. But at least he has more dignity. And then season 4 completely forgets about that too. So that's nice. You waste J.K. Simmons on this. That's also another thing. Like I mentioned, the recap, one of the things that I actually like about this setting, few things, is the fact that the segments at the beginning of the episodes with Jeff Bennett narrating, like a traditional old documentaries with the grain filter and all, I actually really ended up liking those. Jova told at the beginning that they may have not been the best thing, but I honestly disagree. I actually ended up growing on them, so that's okay. It's a shame that because he's tied to the pro bending, Jeff Bennett's narrator character gets only relegated to the beginning. I wish he was like more of a side character, having kind of like a running gag of him being the only broadcaster, narrator, commentator on everything that happened, even like on the radio stations or events that were happening. But they don't do that much with him. So, Which leads me to Korra herself. I'm not sure how to handle this because there are some things that I would want to say, but it would be too personal, at least in commentary. Maybe I'll say that later once the mics are off. But objectively, Korra is a badly handled character. And what I appreciate that her character gets retconned and recuperated at the middle of season 2. It shows that the writers did not have that, in particular at the end. They had to work on the fan backlash. It's a shame that things had turned out this way, and the fact that the Korra character doesn't improve too much after that. But I appreciate the effort nonetheless. That's on the objective level. On a personal level, I would be more willing to forgive Korra on an understanding, but that's the only thing I'm going to say. So for my opinion on the show, stick with the objective one and the fact that she's bad. But if you want to ask me personally, it's not something that I'm going to develop here. So I honestly think I covered all that I needed to, but if I remember something, I'll mention it quickly or point it down. So that leaves you, Jova.
Well, Tio, I'm kind of wishing you'd gone last because it sounds like you'll have the most unique thoughts out of us. Well, I'll just start from where best I can. The beginning. Okay, when Korra first came out, what can I say? As a fan, I was looking forward to it. And you know what? When Season 1 first came out, we liked it. We did. It's just when Season 2 came about, that's when we started to look back on Season 1 and we started to realize the problems with Season 1. Okay, I think the best way to start off with the problems with Season 1 is how, to sum up Season 1, it feels like they're trying to do what Avatar did, except the opposite, because they're afraid of being called ripoffs, I mean, hey, Aang spent all of the original show traversing the world, so of course Korra stays in one city. Aang had to learn the elements over the course of the show. Oh, well, we can't possibly have any differences, so therefore Korra only needs to learn air. And it just ends up being a detriment when they specifically go out of the way to be the opposite of Avatar, to the point where they end up also being the opposite of fun, which the original show was, which is dull when it's not being bad. I mean, okay, Season 1 does have some of its good points, but I'm gonna agree with what Mysterious Mr. Enter said. It has a distinct lack of Varric. Like, don't get me wrong, Season 2 is the worst, but man, looking back, the lack of, not even just Varric, but the lack of an overall good standout character in Season 1 is jarring. Like, am I the one who notices that if there's one thing Season 1 lacks that even Season 2 had, it's that one breakout character. I mean, sure, Tenzin would be it, if the writers let him grow more of a spine, more so, and stand up to Korra.
Yeah.
The closest character that comes to that is actually a person who I think is the better villain for Season 1, Tarlok, to the point where they pretty much made Unalaq Tarlok 2.0. Tarlok actually is the better villain in a sense. Like, he's to the forefront. He actually has a better reason to be doing half the stuff he's doing, seeing as how, well, there's a non-bender revolution causing panic, so I can kind of see why he'd be suspect of non-benders, if only to try and root out whoever Amon is at the time. Sure, the way he does it is a bit scumbaggy and whatnot, but he does intentionally have good intentions. Yeah, I know you're going to argue Amon does, but here's the problem. We figure out who Amon really is, and it turns out he's not some great unifier. No, inside he's just some 12-year-old kid who's mad at Daddy because Daddy was mean to him and his brother, and he thinks that is the root of all bending evil. Here's the problem. His father was a non-bender. Like, the reason his father wanted vengeance was because his bending was taken away. So his mentality is, I'm going to take bending away from everyone, including the Avatar. That'll make the world a better place, ignoring the fact that it was losing the bending that made his father that evil jerk in the first place.
Hey Jova, it's like the so-called psychology of the origami killer. Oh shit! My father didn't bother saving my brother. Clearly, what I should do is kidnap kids and kill them unless their father saves them. This would somehow make amends. Somehow.
Totally.
Yeah, it's just a lot of season one's major problems that aren't pro bending or the love triangle tail to Amand and how he, okay, so awesome voicing by Steve Blum aside, he's a sucky villain, and what a waste of Steve Blum too. Again, now Tarlok is by no means perfect, but Tarlok to me has quite possibly the most notable of all the arcs of all the characters in season one.
I'm curious, Jova. What would you say is the villain that wastes Steve Blum most? The villain of this or the villain of Indigo Prophecy?
Indigo Prophecy. Okay, I'm gonna say Indigo Prophecy if only because what's his name? The
Guardian. What was it called?
The Oracle.
The Guardian. The Guardian. You mean the Steve Blum plays the Guardian?
Wait, I thought it was called the Oracle.
No, that's the Oracle. Well, it's very confusing, but whatever.
Whatever.
The guy with the hood.
Yeah. Steve Blum's character in Indigo Prophecy is far less of a presence, even though, he obviously is someone important. He shows up way less than he does in Avatar season, Legend of Korra season 1. So I'll give him the slight edge there. And it's a shame because, you could have done an interesting concept with him on. Okay, that's the thing. Season 1 starts off with quite a bit of promise. We're seeing how stuff has evolved, and maybe they're making their ways gradually down to what it would be like in the real life. Kind of like what JoJo's Bizarre Adventure did. Only problem is that, obviously, this one accelerated a bit faster. Don't you agree, Tio?
Yep.
Yeah, which is kind of a shame because I feel like maybe under better circumstances the show could have actually gotten another sequel to move down the ladder. That's what I'd like to see. But whatever, we've got Republic City, and yeah, we're confined to that one location for better or for worse. A lot of my co-commenters have already covered a lot of Season 1's shortcomings. I just thought I'd bring up the Tarlok thing. Oh, Pema's a thing. Tenzin's wife. And it still is awfully hinted that the way she broke Tenzin and Lin up may not have actually been a good thing. Holy cow, that is,
Also, just very briefly, her baby kind of disappears at some point.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
she had her baby. That's
Why did you even bother to make her pregnant in the first place?
So we could have that dramatic point near the end of season 1, I guess.
Oh god, because she goes into labor.
I mean,
Sure.
I think I kind of do not like Pema because the way she tells that story hints that she kind of forced Tenzin to break up with Lin, if only because she confused Tenzin.
If anything, Jova, it's another thing that the show does, the fact that it teases there's stories that he could tell that we will never know.
If I'm gonna be quite honest, Tenzin and Lin have more chemistry than Tenzin and Pema. And Tenzin and Lin are exes.
I couldn't even remember his wife's name.
I know some people may say, oh, it sounds fanfiction-y or whatnot, but I'm sorry, this show just wrote them better as a couple, if anything.
Excuse me, have you met my wife? Wife?
Waifu.
Yeah, okay, the kids
I
are...
love you, wife.
The kids, except for Jinora, are at their worst in Season 1. Yes, they do get slightly better in Season 2, except for Jinora with all that. But I digress. They're there. Korra...
Yeah, that's the thing there. It's very delayed. Some of the kids got better in the next season, except Jinora, who got better in Season 3.
Also, side note, I'm so sorry I forgot the name of the voice actors who voices the other girl, Jinora, her sister, which ended up being voices Maricela in Spirit Riding 3. I'm so sorry, Ani. I hope you're gonna have a better career in the future.
I hope so, too. It's like...
She'll be gonna far worse.
Maricela is still my favorite character on the show, but
She's
out
still
of there.
beneath you.
Get out.
it's Spirit Riding 3.
Nolan North. that, and I'm still confused as to what exactly Nolan North is doing in that show.
And
but-
Zigbar's voice actor, but yeah, let's move on. Go ahead, Joe. Continue, Joe.
Yeah, another thing that not many of my co-commentators cover for season 1 is this. Okay, the ending of season 1 is the most Deus Ex Machina load of BS I have ever seen in this entire franchise. Don't get me wrong, the Lion Turtle and the whole energy bending thing was one thing. Season 1 could have ended on something of a bittersweet but tragic note. You know, Korra having only airbending, to the point where she's almost thinking about committing suicide. Now, okay, there are a lot of ways they could have resolved this. But of all the ways, you're telling me that, when we're at our lowest point, that's when we're most open to the spirits. So she wasn't at one of her lowest points when she felt absolute despair. She wasn't at one of her lowest points when, the entire city was pretty much overrun by non-benders. Speaking of which, it's so nice that the non-bending revolution quieted down after they found out that they were tricked and led by a bender themselves. That solved the issue, I guess. Okay, but yeah, Korra, how does she get her bendings back? The spirits just come back. Not only that, they give her the flipping mark of mastery where she bends all 4 elements at the same time. Oh boy. But it's okay, because then season 2 is in to try and retcon some of that stuff in some of the worst ways possible. But I'll get to that after I finish off the list.
Sorry, Joe, but Korra is the Avatar, and you just gotta deal with it.
Until book 4, it seems. I digress, though. But yeah, to wrap up the last bits of season 1 here and there, relationship, covered that already. Asami's Asami. Hiroshi Sato is kind of a Scooby-Doo villain.
Oh man, Jenkins.
Okay. I don't know what to think about that. On the one hand, I wonder maybe it would have been better if, he actually turned out to be legit. And I will admit, it was a bit frustrating that, it turns out Korra was right all along that Hiroshi Sato was involved. It's like...
Dun, dun, dun. Honestly, Jova, I would argue that you're insulting Scooby-Doo villains. Scooby-Doo Zombie Island had scary cat ladies.
True. Not only that, even Scooby-Doo Season 2 of the original show actually mixed things up and legit baffled audiences. Oh, trust me, I'm not kidding. The Mr. Hyde episode is actually a pretty neat subversion. And that was done in the 1960s. But yeah. I will give it this, though. The best thing out of Hiroshi Sato is that line we get from his competitor. My Cabbage Corp!
That's right. Even when it came to the memes, Korra could not live up to it.
Yeah. Korra's memes mainly come more from the faces and animation. Sadly, more than, actual fun.
But that's
lines.
easy. That's like low tier for a show like, say, Dragon Ball Super. Come on.
Yeah, it really is a shame. So yeah, season 1 came and went. It's not terrible, but man, it's frustrating seeing all that potential. And granted, it may be the most frustrated I am because this is one I do know for sure that Nickelodeon did play a part in. Don't get me wrong, the writers should have done better under the circumstances. The problem is that Nickelodeon gave them absolute terrible circumstances. Like, I know that, woulda, coulda, shoulda is not going to solve anything, but I would have loved to have actually seen what this thing could have been. I'm not saying that excuses it. I'm just saying I would have loved to see what it could have been, because holy cow, what we got after season 1 is the absolute depths of hell in regards to this series' quality. Okay, I still hold, it is not as bad as the movie, at least as a whole. There are some moments maybe, but never will I ever say that the movie is better than this. I still can get some better entertainment out of season 2 than I can the movie. Now realize that is saying very, 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 very little about this. I'll just sum it up with season 2. Dark Avatar.
Again, fanfiction tier.
Okay.
That's the sad
The sad thing is that I've seen fanfiction actually handle the concept of Dark Avatar better, like I've mentioned in book 4.
A dark counterpart to the here is nothing new. Fictional medias have that up the wazoo, so it wasn't too much of a stretch. But
it's just the way they did it, the way they conveyed it. From the moment they first mentioned it, it just sounded like bad fanfiction because, again, like I said, I've seen good fanfiction handle the concept of a dark avatar better.
And that's the thing. Sorry. took a finish.
My particular favorite being the one where Azula turns into an evil avatar. I'm still trying to find that one, but I digress. You were saying, Pedro?
That's the thing, Jova. Like, I don't even mind the whole dark counterpart trope. I actually kind of enjoy it. Like, I kind of like.
Me neither. I actually kind of like it. It's just the way this season does it.
Oh, of course, that's exactly the thing. Like, I do enjoy the idea of having, because it's a nice way of confronting the protagonist with what he could have been if he made the wrong choices. It can lead to interesting interactions.
Funnily enough, that's kind of what they try to do in book 4, ironically, for better or for worse.
So I don't. For as cliche as it has become, I still have a soft spot for that trope. This is the problem. This particular thing gives that trope even more of a bad name than it deserves to have.
Yeah.
Go on.
Okay, getting that out of the side. Okay, the whole escalating relationship between Eska and Bolin, ha ha ha, bet you've never heard that pun before, was interesting at first. You know, it could be funny, could be extremely scary. Eska was yonder as all heck. See, it's clear to me to this day they were trying to make Eska the new Azula. Or so I thought, because... Okay, the whole concept of Eska chasing after Bolin across the course of the season, it sounded so exciting. So what did they do after the episode that was established? Nothing. I mean, sure, they have Eska going on about, oh, she stole my husband and all that. Never mind the fact that she's your cousin, so why would she even bother? But then it's like, oh, we have one episode where Eska's angry, tries to capture or kill Korra. Yeah, capture, as her father orders. No disintegrations. And then after Korra is apparently eaten by the spirit thing, Eska's completely back to normal. And then at the end of the season, they have the goal to make Bolin fall in love with her, but then Eska says, oh, now I don't want to do this relationship anymore. It's like, okay, if there's one problem Book 2 has, it's a distinct lack of people calling out the jerks in the season. Korra never directly gets called out for her behavior, and Eska never gets chewed out by Bolin, who had every single right to. Don't get me wrong, Bolin has that one arc where he's a bit of a jerk here and there, but aside from that, Bolin's like the most innocent character of Book 2, who gets a lot of stuff piled onto him. Okay, Mako was getting better too in Book 2, but then we had to have him do the stupid... let's have him lie to an amnesia Korra because he doesn't want to make it awkward, even though he had no problems chewing her out earlier in Book 2, so... What happened to you, Mako? What happened to you? You were doing good. You could have settled down with Asami, but nope! We just had to do that thing, which of course made Asami angry, so I guess she dumped him. Ay vey. Yes, the love triangle came back with a vengeance in that season, and it was terrible. So, yeah, that was that. But, okay, as I said before, though, the best thing about Book 2, and quite possibly the series in general, was Varric. From top to bottom, Varric is just the man for me. Even when he's swapping sides, he does it in a way that makes sense to me enough. And I do like his, eventual redemption or whatnot. Granted, I do feel that some things could have been done a bit better. And I do wish that maybe they hadn't been so obvious with the whole he's the one behind all this bit. That's kind of a problem I'm beginning to see quite a bit with Legend of Korra. Like, it's a bit too obvious even for me. Thankfully, though, it's not in a way where, he's irredeemable, so I was glad about that. As for Book 2's fight scenes, okay, Book 2 has a recurring issue from Season 1 with the fight scenes. The animation is gorgeous, but a lot of the bending was kind of reduced to just punches and kicks, even ones that don't really rely on punches and kicks. And Korra barely uses waterbending against a waterbender. Oops. Oh, and let's not forget Korra's ever so wonderful line that she says to a judge in front of the public, if you take their lives, I'll take yours. Oh dear. Somebody, I guess, forgot to tell her the memo that the Avatar is supposed to be the absolute role model. Which thankfully she got through her head in Book 3. Yeah, let's just cap off Book 2 with, I don't like it. and I'd like to plunge it into a deep, deep, deep dark hole where it can't hurt me anymore.
Aside from that,
Aside from Barrack, yeah. Oh God, I almost forgot about that. Yeah, I like that.
And Avatar Origins. What was the name of that guy?
One.
Beginnings.
Get it?
Harder.
I'm just gonna call it what it is. Avatar Origins 1.
It's funny how he's called one because he's number one.
And I still argue even that two-parter has problems, but moving on.
Well, yeah, that's mainly with the retcon stuff, but those retcons aren't as bad as I recall them. Although, I do raise an eyebrow at the idea that the Fire Lord was hiding Air Bison away from the world during the war.
You couldn't come up with of all the excuses, you could at least come up with someone. Any excuse would be contrived, but you could at the very least come up with something better than that.
It's good that they never used that against Zhang for any psychological warfare. Or, that they used the Air Bison for warfare at all, seeing as how they were trying to mess with the air. But you know what, if I go into books 1 through 2's problems, I'd be here all night, and you guys have covered a good portion of them. So, book 2 is over and done with. The fan base was, needless to say, devastated. Okay, look, we may have liked book 1 because that was what we got for Avatar in a while, but having come to book 2, our eyes were kind of open to it, and man, people were jumping off in droves. So, in comes book 3. Holy cow, Avatar is flipping back, y'all. Okay, book 3 does so much right. Korra feels like a natural evolution. See, unlike book 2, which, kind of... God, I hate to go back to it, but the major problem with book 2's Korra was not only that she was at her absolute worst, but it felt like she had learned nothing from book 1. Whereas book 3 finally feels like she's learned some stuff, where she actually knows how to handle stuff not rambunctiously here. Like Tio said, we finally get to see what the world outside of Republic City is like more often. And sure, we had the North and South Pole in book 2, but come on, that wasn't really much. It's nice to see that people got up better. Tenzin finally gets this time to shine that he was owed big time. He has a better relationship with his family here and there. And speaking of relationship with family, oh, yes, much better. It's like you guys said with book 2. Yeah, the major problem with Korra is that in books 1 through 2, she's kind of Rey from Last Jedi, in the sense that, oh, here she is, meant to be better than the last Avatar, only she's not really. Nobody really calls her out for her faults here and there. She never really fails or whatnot. But, oh, finally, in book 3, we're out of that. And another thing that I don't like about this compared to Last Jedi is how it goes on to suggest that, oh, you remember those characters that you liked from the old show? Here they are, either old, or it turns out they were terrible parents. Well, except for Toph, because it makes sense that she'd be a terrible parent, but the whole thing with Aang was just levels of what were you thinking? Which, thankfully, they kind of quietly retcon in book 3, and for the better. Holy cow. Because we actually get a much better look at Tenzin's relationship with his brother and sister in book 3, especially with Bumi becoming...
Before they get dropped in season 4.
Yeah, they're still there, but yeah, you're right. We don't focus on them as much in book 4. Yeah, but yeah, Bumi and Kaya are cool in that one, much better. And the villains. Okay. Another thing that a lot of people haven't covered about book 3, book 3 has quite possibly some of the best bending. And then by that, I mean evolution of bending. The moves are as you would expect bending to be, but varied and whatnot. Yeah, book 3 has the best handling of fight scenes in the Legend of Korra series, which is a neat detail that I do pay mind to, especially seeing how our bad guys each utilize their senses of bending, from Bingwa with her knives, or Combustion Woman with, of course, her combustion bits. And, of course, Gavan, the dude bro, with his lava bending. Yeah, I gotta agree with you. I love how Gavan is, just this affably evil guy who, yeah, he's evil, but at the same time, you could totally see yourself just having a nice bar shot with the guy as well if you weren't busy being evil.
Yeah.
Zahir is definitely a compelling villain, one who wants to plunge into anarchy, and technically does get what he wants. But the interesting thing is how in book 4 he goes on to see maybe that wasn't such a good idea and ends up
Not
helping.
only that, another thing that I say that one thing that actually I'm glad in season 4 is that they didn't have the excuse of saying, "Oh, it's because of what Zahir did that Kuvia rose to power." No, it's because one of because Lean's sister actually chickened out when she had to take responsibility. That was actually the catalyst.
Yeah, indeed. Like, I do, to touch a bit on Kavira, since she does show up as early as season 3, I do at least like the subtle start about how Kavira starts from being, this everyday hero that we see here and there. Of course, she's voiced by Zelda Williams, so, either she's a little guest cameo like Serena Williams was in Book 3, or she's gonna be important later on. I did like Kavira's slight but subtle rise to power starting in Book 3, so that was nice here and there. I guess you could say evilness from small beginnings. Introducing
Parva's, well, actually, it wouldn't work. It's, what's the Latin word for evil too?
Malus, I guess.
Malus Parva Magna. There you go.
There you go.
I'm too tired to look it up.
I liked how we got to meet Lin's family, and the Zhao Fu was definitely an interesting concept. Again, Book 3 has the best bout of us actually getting to visit all these locations, and Zuko being back was nice, because, as far as characters who come back, Zuko and Toph, I'd say, got the best deals and whatnot. Zuko gets to actively help, and of course gives... How, funnily enough, he gives good advice, just like his uncle did when he was his age, go figure. And Toph, Book 4. It is kind of a shame. I wish he could have gotten to do more, but that kind of seems to have a thing to do with the whole Fire Nation in general, which, on a story reason, I do get. Them not wanting to get involved as much, but it is kind of a shame we didn't get that. But whatevs. Book 3, though, is quite amazing. And I'm sure, Tio, you were pleased to see a lot of the villains do get their comeuppance properly, especially the Earth Queen. So, Zahir found one of the most useful means of airbending, putting an end to the Earth Queen, because she was a hate sink, to say the least.
Yeah.
Book 3 also excels in that we actually get to learn more about Mako and Bowen's backstory, finally, thanks to us getting to meet their family in Ba Sing Se. Great help there. Also, I love the touch that in Ba Sing Se, no one's really scared when the Earth Queen gets assassinated. In fact, there's people actively cheering. Even the guardsmen are like, oh wait, the Earth Queen's dead? Finally!
I repeat, the Earth Kingdom is a mess.
Yeah. So Book 3 was awesome. And the consequences that it did give for Korra were harsh, but it was done in a way that was interesting to see how Korra would heal, which, was interesting for Book 4. So I'd say Book 3 of Legend of Korra does feel like something that could have been a part of Avatar: The Last Airbender, the show. So, where do we go from there? Book 4. Okay. I will maintain Book 4 is definitely one of the good seasons of Korra. That doesn't mean I find it on par with the original Avatar series like I did with Book 3, though. Don't get me wrong, Book 4 has some nice bookends to a few of the arcs here. Although, I'll just say this, am I the one who realizes that the whole concept of the world not needing the Avatar anymore arc kind of disappeared at some point?
It's sad. As much as I okay with the end of season 3, I wish the show ended with season 3.
Yeah, I can see what you mean.
The idea that the Avatar had become useless for the world is just... I agree that it's something that eventually will happen, but it's not something we needed to see.
And the weird thing is that the arc kind of feels like it just goes away by the end. Like, it sounds like, oh, yay, our Avatar did save the day, so I guess we do need the Avatar? It's just there. And, okay, if ever there were a time when I feel like some things did get, we know stuff got cut off with Book 4, but it's like, it feels like some arc ends were missing with Book 4, and I'm not just talking about the Korra-Sami relationship. I am glad, though, that Varric's arc got the proper end that it deserved, because if they had screwed up Varric's arc, that would have just been, I don't care how good it would have been, there would have been some outcry about that. Book 4, okay. I'm on the fence with Kuvira. Overall, I'd say I still like her as a villain. Like, she's definitely their take on what the new Azula would be. I guess the problem is that, unlike Azula, she sadly doesn't have as many episodes dedicated to her. I mean, it's not to say that Azula was in every single episode of Book 2, like Kuvira is kind of with Book 4. But Azula overall had more time to spread out. Heck, we even got to see her as a child, and heck, we even got an episode completely to Azula's point of view at some point in Book 3. Kuvira feels like Azula, but missing out some of those extra layers that made Azula's defeat so much more satisfying. Like, okay, I know that you think that it was blue ballsing not to kill her, but honestly, I think that by not killing her and just seeing her insane and whatnot, Tio, it felt like at least it did feel like a proper defeat in the sense that she didn't get what she wanted.
Azula still stay consistently evil instead of saying, "Oh, right, I guess I was wrong."
Oh yeah, Kuvira's whole revelation or whatnot is like I'm wondering.
I should spoil it, but it's something that happened in a recent media that was released in January. That's all I can say.
Huh? It's like Kuvira's weird. Like. For the last bit, she's going completely insane, and I'm like, okay, this is what I've been waiting for. The correlation to when Azula went insane during her defeat, except then it's like she sees a bunch of spirit lights, and she's like, I've seen the light, I give up. You're going to pay for all your crimes, and that's it, bye. Sorry about your wedding being cancelled, but then again, you kind of annulled it when you tried to kill your hubby. Whatever. Okay. Not much a lot to say with Book 4, though. Book 4 feels like a sense of good in the sense that it just does what it needs to be good. I mean, there are a lot of cool moments, though. I'll admit, part of me does feel a bit disappointed that Toph doesn't get to, participate in the final fight. I get what they're saying. I'm getting too old for this. It's just, it feels jarring for me, especially when, in the last series, we had a group specifically made of old people who could still fight. Like, I mean, again, I get the reasoning, but it feels...
the same.
Huh? Yeah, true, I get that. But again, up until that point, you've got Toph kicking absolute butt all over. But I guess, to be fair, it's gradual enough. I mean, I guess the only reason it feels weird is like, well, I mean, Toph is the one who started metal bending. You'd think she'd be the one around to, and the one who's giving metal benders a bad name. But, what you gonna do, I guess. Okay, the Spirit Vine energy thing, that was definitely a neat concept. I did again like Varric's character development here and there, and I like how they finally bring Julie to the forefront, allowing her to blossom more into her own character, to the point where she finally calls the shots a bit on her relationship with Varric. That was nice. Bolin's arc with Opal. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Bolin, try better. Okay. I get the concept of Bolin not wanting to see the worst in what Kuvira was doing. Like, yeah, this is definitely an allegory for Nazism and how, before some Nazis knew about what Hitler was really all about, they thought, oh no, he's really doing the best for it. Technically, Kuvira was doing good. The problem was the underlying motive or whatnot. I'm okay with that. My major issue is how it affects his relationship with Opal, because his relationship with Opal, upon rewatching the series, I kind of realized it went nowhere. And Opal kind of chews him out a bit way too much, needlessly, given the circumstances or whatnot. Like, it really...
Not just that. He manages to get her back way too easily. Like, they don't actually talk about their compatibility, what they actually think of each other's options during this season 4. They just kind of separate and then go back. That's it. Like,
honestly,
there's nothing.
Makes you wish there were more episodes.
Yeah, that's definitely my running thing with this series. It's like, well, it could have been better with more episodes, because that's how Mike and Brian operate better. I mean, yes, they could have adapted better, but even still, more episodes allows for more time to focus on this stuff. And sadly, we never did get that proper amount. That's just always the problem. Like, even Book 3, which is the absolute best of this series, does feel like it could have been so much more with other episodes, because there's more backstories to be told. Book 4 is... I mean, okay. As far as endings to a series go, Book 4 is by no means an abomination or anything. I'll admit, the thing having it end with Korra and Asami just walking off into the portal thing, that was just weird. Whether or not you know about the relationship thing, that's just weird. Like, wouldn't it make sense to, I don't know, bring your friends or whatnot? Why just you? I mean, I get that Asami has lost her father and whatnot, but why not have all your friends together? You know, honestly, even if it were romancing, I get it. And the original Avatar ended with Aang and Katara kissing, but that was when they were in the company of their friends and family or whatnot. Here, it's just them going off on the lonesome into a new spirit portal that was created by Korra reflecting a blast made by Kuvira. Like, it feels like they had something more planned, but at the time that they were done with this episode, Nickelodeon said, yeah, we're shutting it down for now. And by now, we mean forever.
Thanks.
Thanks, bye.
Book 4 is good, but it's just that. It's just good. It could have been so much more. But what else? At least I got my Varric ending, and I will enjoy it for what it's worth. And that concludes our final thoughts on Legend of Korra. What a roller coaster! What an absolute roller coaster!
Now,
Can we finally get off this wild ride?
For now, Dweebs, remember, but aside from the comics, turns out that someone did some video games on Korra. The most famous one is the Platinum Games one, obviously. But someone did it on the... Well, someone did one also for the 3DS, and from what I've seen, it seems to be working, so stay tuned for when I eventually record that.
Yep, we'll see you then, folks. And don't worry, we'll cover the comics eventually.
Yeah, we've got even then we still got the Avatar Last Airbender comics.
Oh, those two, yeah. So we'll see you then for the next thing Avatar related.
Sure.
See ya.
Right. So.